Chapter 1283. Tian and Lu Qin'er could have defeated the Blood Shura in front of them without suffering any losses. However, in order to buy time, Tian resolutely used a brutal method. He paid the price of being seriously injured in exchange for Lu Qin'er, successfully killing the Blood Shura, just to buy time. After killing the Blood Shura, Tian and Lu Qin'er immediately jumped toward the Blood Shura that was fighting with Lu Tianyuan. Although Lu Tianyuan had suffered some injuries in the previous fight, it was because of his previous momentum that he did not hesitate to injure himself that Lu Tianyuan had the upper hand in the battle with the Blood Shura. What Lu Tianyuan lacked was a Class 1 Calamity Spirit Treasure. Once he had a suitable Spirit Treasure, his strength would even surpass many of the heirs of the same level who were born in famous sects and holy lands. Defeating the Blood Mara would be a piece of cake. Under the siege of the three, the Blood Shura naturally could not hold on for too long. Soon, it was beheaded by Tian. The three of them did not dare to take a breather. They jumped toward the battle where Lao Zu of Tianshan was fighting. At this time, Lao Zu of Tianshan was fighting with a Jade Shura and two Azuras. Although he had a Class 2 Calamity Spirit Treasure, the mountain-splitting axe, he was at a disadvantage in front of the joint siege of the three Shuras. However, Lao Zu of Tianshan's Earth Attribute Cultivation method was excellent, so he could use the Earth Element Real Body to withstand the siege of the three Shuras. Lu Tianyuan and the other two suddenly joined the fray, but the three of them weren't fighting against the two Blood Shura that were supporting them. They were fighting against the Jade Shura, who was taking up most of the Tianshan elders' attention. Lu Tianyuan, Tian, and Lu Qin'er, who had just condensed a Dharma, worked together. The three of them did not have a spirit treasure, but they were fighting a Jade Shura. As soon as the battle began, under the attack of the Jade Shura's accompanying spirit treasure, Tian's face changed. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of dirty blood, but he still rushed forward with a ferocious look. The three of them worked together to block the Jade Shura, but the situation was very bad. Obviously, every time the three of them fought the Jade Shura, it was a kind of torture on the edge of life and death. But when Lao Zu of Tianshan saw the three of them join the battle, he left immediately. He did not dare to ignore the three of them. The mountain-splitting axe flew out, turned into an arc, and cut off half the shoulder of the Blood Shura that had been harassing the Jade Shura the most. The other Blood Shura saw that Lao Zu of Tianshan was looking at it, so it turned around and ran away. The current Mo Luo really seemed to have changed a lot. He was not as fearless as he used to be, but he was more cunning and intelligent. Lao Zu of Tianshan did not have time to chase after the Blood Shura that had escaped. Instead, he turned around and ran towards Lu Ping, who was fighting an injured Azura. But at this time, something happened on the battlefield. When Lin Yu, Lao Zu, Lu Ping, and the others saw that Lu Qin'er had suddenly advanced to the Dharma stage, their eyes brightened. Even though the practitioners who were watching from the sidelines were still unwilling to help, if Lu Qin'er cooperated well, she, a small, early Dharma adept, might be the key to breaking the situation. However, when Lu Qin'er joined the battle, Huo Wuyin had completely woken up. Although the two of them were still being chased by the Azuras who did not know what was going on, it was only a matter of time before they could escape. At this time, even Lin Yu, Lao Zu, was a little impatient. He said to the people around him, "My friends who are watching the battle, if you don't help now, when will you? With Jinling and the others holding back Mara's army, as long as you help us, we will definitely win this battle. You will also be able to earn a lot of battle credits, and it will not be impossible for you to enter the 7th Patriarch's altar in the future." A low, cold laugh came from the void. Who will fight the Azuras? If we help now, we can certainly win. But what if we wait until both of you are injured? Fellow Taoist Zhenling, please hold on a little longer. This way, it will be safer for us to help. Don't worry, as long as you continue to fight, we will not just watch as Mara's army opens up this passage. But if you are defeated for no reason, it will mean that you deliberately abandoned this place. This crime will not be easy for your sect to bear, will it? I heard that your sect recently wanted to become a large sect. If you let Mara's army escape from under your eyes, even the Supreme Profound sect and the Hutu sect suffered a great loss at your hands. How impressive! How come you can't even defend this passage now? This place should have originally belonged to a large sect. A medium-sized sect from a remote and desolate place actually wants to occupy such a treasured place. They really deserve it. These voices were all strange, and it was obvious that they had deliberately distorted their voices. Moreover, each of their voices was abnormally fleeting, obviously not wanting others to discover their identity and hiding place. Jinling was about to explode from these people's words, but at this critical moment of life and death, he could only endure it. Lin Yu Laozu's face immediately darkened. Although he was a pure yang cultivator and one of the 13 initiators of the world's sect's encirclement against Mara's army, he was still not taken seriously by those cultivators. Although they did not dare to offend him on the surface, they secretly disdained him. Moreover, Lin Yu Laozu was obviously injured at this time. Otherwise, how could he only be in a stalemate with an Azura until now? Lin Yu Laozu did not say anything more. He knew that no matter how much he said, these people would not help him, and it would only make him a laughing stock. At this time, to be able to make a pure young cultivator lose face in front of them, who knew how many people's dark hearts would be satisfied. At this time, Han Wuya and Huo Wuyin finally found an opportunity. Taking advantage of the moment when the Azura's attention was suddenly attracted by Laozu of Tianshan's escape, the wind and rain whip took the opportunity to stir up the wind and rain. The two great cultivators had already escaped from the Azura's entanglement and retreated a few hundred feet away. However, Huo Wuyin's strength had been greatly damaged, and just as the two of them retreated, he was still hit by the Azura. Although Han Wuya had tried his best to protect him, Huo Wuyin still spat out a mouthful of blood, and the aura around him continued to drop. He was now no different from a mid-Dharma adept. After this battle, Huo Wuyin's cultivation base had not only been severely damaged by Lu Ping, but it was also very likely that his cultivation base would fall by another level. Jinling Lu Tianping, Lin Yu, you old dog, I will remember today's gift. We have a long way to go in the future. At this time, Lu Ping did not care about Huo Wuyin's harsh words. The Azura that had been shaken off by the two of them was already charging towards Jinling and the others. Chapter 1284. With Huo Wuyin and Han Wuya's sudden retreat, the advantage that Jinling had gained from Lu Qiner's advancement to the Transcendence Realm was gone. The Azura, which had lost its opponent, immediately charged at Jinling's group. Jinling was about to be slaughtered by the enraged Azura. On the other side, Tian Tian, Lu Tianyuan, and Lu Qiner were being suppressed by a Jade Shura. The Blood Shura that had escaped earlier had returned. The three of them were under even more pressure, and it was only a matter of time before they collapsed. Laozu of Tianshan, who had finally managed to free his hand, looked at Lu Tianyuan and the other two, who were almost at their limits. He then looked at the Azura that was charging at him. The mountain-splitting axe in his hand, which was about to attack the Azura that was fighting Lu Ping, was enveloped by a thick yellow Zhanyuan. Laozu of Tianshan knew that he couldn't stop the Azura with his own strength, but under such circumstances, he had no choice but to give it his all. Otherwise, Jinling would die even faster. But just as Laozu of Tianshan was about to attack, he saw Tianfan and Tianshui of Laozu suddenly abandon the two Jade Mara that were fighting and joined forces to attack the Azura. Behind them, the two Jade Shura were already chasing after them with a sinister smile. Laozu of Tianshan was shocked. He shouted, "Be careful." The mountain-splitting axe in his hand had already flown out of his hand to slash at the last Jade Shura. In a moment of desperation, even if Laozu of Tianshan had 3 heads and 6 arms, he could only throw the mountain-splitting axe. The last Jade Shura hurriedly turned around to block, but under Laozu of Tianshan's sudden attack, the companion's spiritual treasure in its hand was almost sent flying. Even so, the Jade Shura was still chasing after the two of them. The Azura's attack was finally blocked by Tianfan and Tianshui, the two Laozu of Tianshan. However, the two of them were instantly sent flying by the Azura. In mid-air, the Jade Shura, who had caught up from behind, laughed strangely. It took the opportunity to attack Tianfan and Tianshui Laozu. At this moment, Tianfan, an old ancestor Heavenly Snow, had just suffered a blow from one of their Azuras, causing their blood and chi to churn. Even now, their true energy was barely replenished, so how could they defend against this sneak attack from behind? At this critical moment, Tian Fanlaozu extended his hand and pushed Tian Shuelaozu, who was beside him. Tian Shuelaozu was sent flying dozens of meters away. As for Tian Fanlaozu, he had taken the Jade Shura's attack head-on. Before he could stabilize himself in mid-air, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Tian Shuelaozu was like a crazed demon. Without waiting for her body to stabilize in mid-air, the Zhen Yuan in her body reversed. She couldn't care less about the damage to her body. She turned into an arc in mid-air, rushing towards Tian Fanlaozu. However, Tian Fanlaozu, who had been heavily injured by the Jade Shura's sneak attack, didn't die. However, just as Tian Shuelaozu was rushing over, Tian Fanlaozu's life force was being depleted at a visible speed. Tian Shuelaozu's crazed state immediately woke up. Immediately, her face was filled with panic. However, before she could get close, Tian Fanlaozu, whose clothes were stained with blood and was heavily injured, had already rushed back. The spiritual fan in his hand had already created a strong wind, temporarily repelling the Jade Shura that had injured him. He didn't look like someone who had been injured before. Tian Shuelaozu had already reunited with Tian Fanlaozu. Tian Shuelaozu stared at Tian Fanlaozu blankly. Her mouth was saying, you. She was so shocked that she couldn't say anything. Tian Fanlaozu laughed. At this time, we have to block it. But you will die. We can't care about that anymore. Otherwise, more people will die. The Azura rushed over again. Tian Fanlaozu shook the spiritual fan in his hand and said, "Come on. If we can't block it, we will still die." The Jade Shura, who had been temporarily repelled, rushed forward again. Although Tian Fanlaozu had used a strange secret technique to suppress his injuries and become even stronger than before, they were still beaten miserably by the Azura despite working together with Tian Shuelaozu. However, they were still able to hold back the Azura. However, at this time, if the Jade Shura rushed forward again, even if Tian Shuelaozu used the same secret technique, he would still be defeated. However, before the Jade Shura could rush over, a huge palm suddenly came from the side. In a moment of desperation, the Jade Shura used the spiritual treasure in front of her to block the palm. A huge force entered her body, and the Jade Shura was sent flying again. However, this kind of force was obviously unable to cause any damage to her. The owner of the giant hand screamed. There was a giant wound, and it was bleeding. A giant brown bear stood up, and the wounded bear monster ran at Jade Shura. Jade Shura was shocked. She was shocked. She was shocked. She was shocked. She was shocked. In the Zhenling camp, the pale Wu Yinglan looked at the bear demon that was rushing toward her. Her lips curled into a smile, and she said, "I tried my best." Then, she fainted on the ground. The practitioners of the spirit-beast taming sect were usually in cahoots with murderers. However, for a practitioner of the spirit-beast taming sect to be able to control a ferocious beast of the same level as him as his natal beast, it was already an impressive feat. For example, the Empyrean Walker of the spirit-beast taming sect, Sang Yu, was now a mid-Dharma adept, and his natal beast was also a primordial fierce crocodile that had just entered the mid-Dharma adept not long ago. Sang Yu himself relied on this primordial fierce crocodile that was born from a top-level demon clan to firmly occupy the first position among the Empyrean Walkers of the spirit-beast taming sect. Although Wu Yinglan was only at the early Dharma stage, her father was the previous Empyrean Walker of the spirit-beast taming sect, and he was now a great practitioner. Because he was worried that his daughter would encounter danger outside, he used the secret techniques of the spirit-beast taming sect to allow his daughter to control a mid-Dharma brown bear demon, so that she could summon it to save her life in times of danger. However, summoning this mid-Dharma ferocious beast was obviously not an easy task for Wu Yinglan. Normally, it would have been easier if her abilities had not been damaged, but now that her divine will had been damaged by the sneak attack of the blood demon, she could no longer hold on after summoning this bear demon. She only had time to give an order to attack the Jade Shura before she fainted on the ground. Although this bear demon was at the mid-Dharma stage, it was only an ordinary ferocious beast. Naturally, it could not compare to the bloodline of a top-level demon like the primordial fierce crocodile that Sangyu controlled. Similarly, it could not be a match for the Jade Shura. However, ferocious beasts did not have spiritual intelligence. Once they encountered an opponent, they would fight to the death. Although the Jade Shura's abilities were above the bear demon, it was impossible for her to defeat the opponent before her in a short period of time. Wu Yinglan's summoning this time could be said to be a life-saving move. At least, it delayed the eventual defeat of Zhenling. Tian Fan and Tian Shui, the two Laozu, were already prepared to die. Tian Fan Laozu even used a secret technique to overdraft his own life force in exchange for stabilizing his injuries and temporarily increasing his abilities. However, in the face of absolute power, the two of them could only be sent flying by the Azura again and again, but they stubbornly charged forward again and again. Every time they faced the Azura's attack, Tian Fan Laozu would do his best to block it at the very front. Almost every time he received an attack from the Azura, Tian Fan Laozu would spit out a mouthful of blood. However, the cultivators hidden in the surrounding void still did not lend a helping hand. Linyu Laozu was persevering, Tian Shan Laozu was also persevering, and Xie Tianyang had tried his best to rush out to help, but he was always surrounded by the Jade Shura and Blood Mara. Su Jin had already tried his best, but at most, he could only lure the Blood Shura that was attacking Lu Tianyuan and the other two. After Chanyu and Chan Xiang lost Lu Tianyuan's support, they were already overwhelmed by the harassment from the two Jade Shuras and the other Mara around them. When Sangyu saw Wu Yinglan summon the demon bear, his eyes had already turned bloodshot. He knew what it meant for Wu Yinglan to summon such a ferocious beast that far surpassed her own cultivation when her will was injured. However, although he had suppressed the Jade Shura in front of him, when faced with the Mara army that was about to surround them, Sangyu was clearly powerless. At this moment, Lu Ping had already forgotten about the commotion that might be caused by the appearance of the two half-spiritual treasures. Now, he only wanted to use the pure young spiritual treasure to defeat the Azura in front of him. However, an Azura was an Azura after all. Even if it was injured, its strength was still above Lu Ping's. For Lu Ping to be able to block an injured Azura was already beyond everyone's expectations. At this moment, he still wanted to turn defeat into victory. However, under the Azura suppression, how could Lu Ping have the time and energy to accumulate his true qi to summon the pure young spiritual treasure? Pooh! Under the Azura's continuous attacks, even though Tian Fan Laozu had deliberately blocked most of the attacks, Tian Shui Laozu was still heavily injured and vomited blood. The rage in Lu Ping's heart soared. It was as if there was a raging flood that was gushing out recklessly. However, no matter how hard it tried, it was unable to find an outlet. The flood accumulated within his body, and Lu Ping felt as if his entire body was swelling up, to the point where it was about to explode. Within his core space, a handkerchief was flickering with 7 colors of light. Line after line of words appeared on the surface of the handkerchief. Battle of the Icy Plains, a matter of Xiantian. For you, I will kill my way through this world. Only death awaits. The light on the handkerchief condensed and finally condensed on the first sentence, Battle of the Icy Plains. The dragon avatar's eyes were wide open. That pair of eyes that originally had a trace of blood red within the greenish-gold color was now glowing with a bright red light. The word battle seemed to have left the handkerchief and was deeply imprinted in the dragon avatar's eyes. Battle, battle, battle. A purplish-gold-colored auspicious cloud rose from behind Lu Ping's back like a beacon that soared into the sky. Before the sword of true spirit could fly out from the top of Lu Ping's head, he had already grabbed it in his hand. Wielding the sword of true spirit, Lu Ping's eyes were flickering with greenish-red light with a trace of gold. His entire body was filled with battle intent, like a dam that had burst. He was waiting for the sword of true spirit to fly out and slash open a hole on the opponent in front of him. Chapter 1285. Fight, fight, fight. The sword chi emitted by the sword of true spirit was similar to the purple gold clouds behind it. With every slash of sword chi, the purple gold clouds would transform into a purple gold dragon with the body of a snake, the claws of an eagle, the legs of a crocodile, the ears of a cow, the whiskers of a fish, and the mane of a horse. In midair, it could even let out a loud roar as it pounced towards the Azura in front of Lu Ping. This was not the green serpent disturbing the sea's sword technique. Instead, Lu Ping was evolving the word fight written by Zhao Daoren. What he was evolving was not only the sword technique, but also the aura, the charm, and the heroic spirit of fighting against millions of people. Zhao Daoren's handwriting, the heaven-splitting legacy, the sword of true spirit, and the anger in Lu Ping's heart were all released with this word fight. An Azura and a mid-Dharma adept. Despite the great disparity in their levels of cultivation, they were still on equal footing. But now, with the three-sword chi of the dragon moving back and forth, the Azura was actually retreating again and again. Even the Azura's expression was one of shock, one after another, until it was fear. The three strange-looking dragons gave the Azura a sense of fear from the bottom of his heart. It was as if the moment they appeared, they were able to produce a strange resonance with the source of heaven and earth. Even their appearance seemed so natural, as if they were late. The strange thing about the three strange dragons was that no one had ever seen them appear. However, they had never seemed out of place in this world. On the contrary, the strangeness that came from the unfamiliarity quickly disappeared, as if they were immediately recognized by those who had seen them from the inside out. This kind of aura was terrifying to the Azura, strange to the others, but to Lin Yu Laozu, it was shocking. As a pure young cultivator, he had a more accurate understanding of this world. This kind of understanding might only be instinctive to others, but Lin Yu Laozu knew that this feeling came from the recognition of the natural source of the world. He had personally witnessed such a thing before. They were the Chinkuan wine cauldron that Earth Spirit Sun summoned during the Battle of Luo Xian Mountain, and the heavenly sword technique that Xiao Baiyu used to break the 5 elements. One of them was one of the 6 artifacts that participated in opening the heavens, while the other was the heavenly sword technique that Zhao Daoren left behind when he opened up the East Sea cultivation world. Heaven and earth were created by them, so it was naturally easier for them to obtain the approval of the origin of heaven and earth. The heaven-defying swordsmanship that Lu Ping used at this time could only be of the same type, which was that this swordsmanship had been used in the process of opening the sky. It was the same as the swordsmanship that Xiao Baiyu practiced. It was the genuine heaven-opening swordsmanship. Everyone was shocked by Lu Ping's sword technique, and Lin Yu Laozu was shocked that Lu Ping also knew heavenly sword technique. However, everyone ignored the flying sword that Lu Ping controlled. It was only a first tribulation spirit treasure, so it naturally would not attract the attention of others. However, Lu Ping knew that only through the sword of true spirit could he unleash the power of his divine swordsmanship to suppress the Azuras. 3 dragons, dragon battle in the wild. In an instant, Lu Ping had already grasped the essence of the heavenly sword technique. However, even though Lu Ping's heaven-opening technique could turn the tables on the Azura in an instant, he still couldn't kill an Azura in a short period of time, even if it was an injured Azura. At this moment, did Tian Fan and Tian Shui still have the time to wait? Lu Ping's heart was bleeding. How could he not know what kind of secret technique Tian Fan Laozu was using? This method of consuming vitality to suppress his injuries to increase his strength, there was only one result. After this battle, Tian Fan Laozu's fate was to fall. However, at this moment, it was not only Tian Fan Laozu. Lu Ping's divine sense covered the entire battlefield. At this moment, the one who could not hold on was Tian Tian. Tian Tian, who was already injured, had no choice but to fight it head-on to prevent the blood Azura that Laozu had chased away from coming back to harass him. He was now an arrow at the end of its flight. If it wasn't for Tian Tian Laozu luring the blood Azura away and Lu Tianyuan using his full strength to block the majority of the Jade Azura's attack, perhaps Tian Tian would not have been able to hold on. Although the Azura was temporarily suppressed by Lu Ping's heavenly sword technique, it seemed to understand Lu Ping's thoughts. In an instant, it actually began to defend with all its strength. And this type of defense was very familiar to Lu Ping. It was entanglement. It used all of Lu Ping's skills to entangle itself. Lu Ping had covered the entire battlefield with his divine sense. However, at this moment, whether it was the Netherwater Sword or his avatar, they were unable to provide any help to the cultivators from the same sect outside of the battle. This occupation was not only noticed by Lu Ping, but also by the Azura. At this moment, the one who could not be delayed was Shunling. This time, Tian Fanlaozu finally could not hold on any longer under the Azura's attacks. He consumed all his vitality in exchange for suppressing his injuries and increasing his strength. However, under the absolute suppression of strength, he was ultimately unable to withstand such a situation where he was heavily injured. After the Azura sent the two of them flying for the 5th time, the Skysol ancestor finally could not even spit out blood anymore. He did his best to turn his pale white face around, wanting to say something to the Sky Snow ancestor beside him. However, his lips moved, but nothing came out in the end. Instead, his eyes began to glaze over. Tian Shuelaozu was instantly stunned. Even when the Azura had already caught up to them and the companion's spiritual treasure in its hand was already above Tian Shuelaozu, she did not notice it at all. "Senior uncle, be careful. Senior uncle, be careful." One by one, Jinling's disciples cried out. However, at this moment, Tian Shuelaozu was like a fool, not moving at all. She only looked at Tian Fanlaozu, who no longer had any vitality left. Defeated. Jinling is finally going to be defeated. Has that female cultivator gone stupid? Wouldn't it be good if she could resist for a while? This Azura has yet to exhaust much of its strength. If she were to interfere in the battle, it would be a huge problem. Her Dao companion is already dead. From the looks of it, the two of them were deeply in love. At this moment, she doesn't even care about her own life. Since she doesn't want it, it would be good if she self-destructed. It's chaotic. The aura around her body is chaotic. If she isn't possessed by the devil, then she is going to self-destruct. As expected, she is going to self-destruct. That's great. This Azura is so pleased with itself. If she were to self-destruct at this distance, there's an 80 to 90% chance that she wouldn't be able to dodge it. It would be enough for her to suffer. Why don't we attack after she self-destructs? Hee, are you eyeing that Azura's battle merit points? Do you think that you are Lu Tianping? That you can deal with a heavily injured Azura by yourself? Even that Lu Tianping is being held there by that Azura and can't do anything about it, right? The cultivators who were hiding in the void around them were still excitedly communicating with each other through divine thoughts. All of a sudden, it was as if they had lost their voices. However, very quickly, a series of curses could be heard. How did this person come out? He actually dared to use spatial magic on the battlefield. Who the F***CK is this? He's not following the rules. He's looking for death. He can actually stop that female cultivator from self-destructing. F***CK. He's only at the late Dharma stage, and he can actually block that Azura. Who is this person? Who is it? Very quickly, a wave of gloating divine thoughts was shared. Io, he's been sent flying. I knew it. Serves him right. He's overestimating himself. A great cultivator actually dares to fight with an Azura one-on-one. Does he think that he is Xiao Baiyu? No. Quick, look. Oh my God. That fellow stood up as if nothing happened. He went back up again. Is he still human? Strange. This is strange. How can this person's fleshly body be so strong? Wasn't the pure young lightning tribulation just like an itch to him? In an instant, the divine thoughts in the air seemed to have sunk into silence. Just when Tian Shuelaozu was determined to die and wanted to take the opportunity to self-destruct, a great cultivator with a blurry face calmly opened up a spatial door in the midst of the turbulent battlefield. Allowing the turbulent space to tear his body apart, he appeared beside Tian Shuelaozu. Oh, it seems like I'm not too late. Following that, the old man seemed to have sensed the turbulence of the spiritual energy around him. His emotionless gaze swept across Tian Shuelaozu. After that, he pointed a finger at the back of Tian Shuelaozu's shoulder. Old ancestor Heavenly Snow, who was about to self-detonate his true essence and had already fallen into an uncontrollable state, suddenly fainted. Then, the turbulent aura around him immediately calmed down. Old ancestor Heavenly Snow's self-detonation had actually been contained. The Azura's attacks came one after another. However, the old man actually managed to block the killing blow that was originally aimed at Tian Shuelaozu, causing the Azura to be momentarily stunned. However, very quickly, the Azura launched another attack. This time, the old man was finally unable to block it. Or perhaps it was because the old man was distracted. He pushed the unconscious Tian Shuelaozu and the fallen Tian Fanlaozu into the encampment a few hundred zhang away. After that, he was sent flying by the Azura's powerful attack. However, a shocking scene occurred. After the old man was sent flying by the Azura, his fleshly body didn't suffer any injuries. He actually patted the dust off his body and stood up once again. This time, it wasn't just the cultivators from the various sects who were secretly watching the battle. Even the two sides that were fighting on the battlefield were shocked. Just how condensed was this person's physical body to be able to withstand an Azura's attack without being injured? Only Lu Tianping's morale was greatly boosted when the old man appeared. The Sword of True Spirit let out a long cry. After suppressing the Azura, Lu Ping was finally able to accumulate his Zhen Yuan and unleash an even more powerful attack. However, since the old man had appeared, Lu Ping naturally wouldn't expose the fact that the pure yang spiritual treasure was split into two. Following the trembling of the spiritual treasure moly, a roar that seemed to originate from ancient times came from the purplish gold auspicious cloud behind Lu Ping, revealing the true appearance of the pure yang spiritual treasure. All this while, this was the first time Lu Ping had revealed his source Dharma idol in front of everyone. After the old man blocked the Azura, Lu Ping knew that the most critical moment had passed. However, this didn't mean that Jinling could win for sure. On the contrary, this was just another delay in the outbreak of danger. This time, the Dharma idol dragon didn't show its head but not its tail in the Dharma idol auspicious cloud. Instead, it pounced into the battle the moment it was summoned by Lu Ping. The three sword lights of the Sword of True Spirit, dragon fighting in the wild, merged with the Dharma idol dragon the moment the Dharma idol dragon appeared. Not only did the Sword of Opening Heaven not weaken, it became even more powerful. The Azura was already at a disadvantage when Lu Ping used the Sword of True Spirit to perform the Sword of Opening Heaven. Now that Lu Ping used the Dharma idol dragon to control the Sword of Opening Heaven, its power was even greater. However, in order to entangle Lu Ping with all its strength, the Azura had gathered all of Lu Ping's techniques other than swordsmanship. In other words, Lu Ping was not only dealing with the Sword of Opening Heaven. At this time, the Azura's previous actions had completely become a trap of its own making. Although the spiritual treasure in the Azura's hands was not comparable to a pure yang spiritual treasure, it was much stronger than a second tribulation spiritual treasure. However, under the combination of the Dharma idol dragon and the Sword of True Spirit, it was sent flying the moment the two sides came into contact. Then the Azura's body flashed and dodged to the side. However, it was inevitable that the Sword of True Spirit would cut open a wound on its shoulder. However, Lu Ping's methods had always been like a flood. The Sword of True Spirit missed, and Lu Xiaoping appeared again. The green willow sword was pointing in the direction the Azura was dodging. But after all, Azuras were existences on the same level as pure yang cultivators. Even if Lu Ping had the upper hand, he still had to make sure his attacks were relentless in order to kill an Azura. He couldn't afford to give the Azura any chance to catch its breath. The Azura swung its hand, and a spiritual light turned into a sharp wind. Like a slap, it slapped Lu Xiaoping 30 feet away. However, the Azura was too slow, and the torrent of sword techniques had already swept the Azura. The Azura stretched out its hand to summon the spiritual treasure. At the same time, it tried its best to resist the attack of the great river flows east. However, in the blink of an eye, it saw that the strange dragon had already opened its mouth in the torrent of sword techniques. The Azura's eyes turned black, and it struggled to break free. However, it was all in vain. In an unknown place, the Azura's eyes were pitch black. It opened its mouth and let out a roar, wanting to ask for help, but no sound came out of its mouth. It struggled in all directions, wanting to touch something, but to no avail. The only thing it could feel was that its consciousness seemed to be fading away, and then completely falling into endless darkness. That Lu Tianping actually killed the Azura? How is this possible? Is he using the legendary heaven-opening sword technique? Since when did the heaven-opening sword technique become so worthless? Purple Sun Palace has it, Xiao Baiyu has it, and now Lu Tianping has it too. What is that Dharma form of his? Is it the Dharma form of a dragon? Why is it so strange? Is there some mystery behind it? That's not the problem now. The problem is whether we should fight. Lu Tianping killed the Azura. With his strength, he can completely break the stalemate. If we don't go out and fight for the battle merits now, I'm afraid that all of them will fall into Zhenling's hands. For a time, the cultivators who had been watching from the sidelines fell into a strange silence again. This was a situation they had thought of before, but for some reason, they could not make up their minds now. This Lu Tianping. 3 or 4 voices rang out at the same time, and then everyone fell silent. Everyone knew that the reason for their hesitation was because of Lu Tianping. This was a demon. This was an existence that could even kill Azuras when he was at the mid-Dharma stage. His strange Dharma power, his unparalleled swordsmanship, and his unbelievably powerful inner Yuan cultivation all showed that he was no less powerful than Xiao Baiyu. He might even be more difficult to deal with than Xiao Baiyu had been all those years ago. After today's battle, many of the cultivators who were watching knew that their sects had greatly offended Zhenling. If it was just a Zhenling sect, it would be fine. Even if it became a large sect in the future, so what? Could it come to the Central Plains to settle scores after the fall? But if this sect produced another person like Xiao Baiyu, damn it, let's do it. It'll be a waste if we don't snatch it. There are so many people here today. Is he going to make things difficult for everyone in the future? It's a free reward. Doesn't anyone want to enter the 7th Patriarch's Taoist platform? The 7th Patriarch's Taoist platform. Everyone's hearts burned with passion when they thought about the place where the 7th Patriarch would teach. Settling scores after the fall and taking revenge in the future was nothing compared to the 7th Patriarch's Taoist platform. Zhenling, don't panic. I'm Yu Lu from the Xiaoxiang sect. I'm here to lend you a hand. I'm a Mo Fan from the Snow Mountain sect, Han Yu from the Tsongshan sect, Stars from the Yunpan Mountain sect, Zhou Ruashi from the Feiyun Pavilion. As soon as Lu Ping killed the Azura, more than 10 rays of light rushed toward the battlefield from a few kilometers away from Zhenling's base like meteors. Lu Ping let out a cold laugh and said in a low voice, "Snatching the rewards? I hope you won't snatch them from me." Chapter 1286. Just as Lu Ping surprised everyone by killing the Azura, the cultivators who had been hiding in the surrounding void and watching from the sidelines all rushed towards Zhenling's base as if they had discussed it beforehand. At the same time, they were shouting and announcing their sects, and at the same time, they were waving the flag of helping Zhenling. These people were fast enough, but at this time, Lu Ping had to think of ways to be faster, because Zhenling had already lost 2 first-generation mid-Dharma adepts, 1 dead and 1 seriously injured, in order to defend the base. Lu Ping did not want to lose another senior at this time. Faced with the Jade Shura's continuous attacks, Lu Tianyuan's power was getting stronger and stronger, but Tian's injuries were getting worse. Fortunately, the 3 of them were working together to block the Jade Shura in front of them, but at this time, another Blood Shura came running towards them. Tian once again blocked the Blood Shura's attack, but the Jade Shura immediately seized the opportunity, using the companion's spiritual treasure in her hand to far exceed that of Lu Tianyuan and the others, and directly attacked at close range. Lu Tianyuan and Lu Qiner used all their strength to block the attack, but Tian was already at the end of his rope. The treasure in his hand and the companion's spiritual treasure collided and broke, and Tian himself was sent flying. Naturally, the Jade Shura would not let go of this opportunity to attack them one by one. While Lu Tianyuan and Lu Qiner had not recovered from the previous attack, the Jade Shura was already rushing towards Tian. Seeing that Tian's life was about to be lost, a sword chi dragon roared and rushed over first. The Jade Shura saw that the situation was not good and immediately turned to escape. This was the sword of opening the heavens, which could even kill Azuras. Although the Jade Shura did not know what the sword of opening the heavens was, it knew that the person who used this sword skill had killed a Jura before. The Jade Shura turned to escape, but at this time, Lu Tianyuan and Lu Qiner had already calmed the fluctuating inner yuan in their bodies, and the two of them saw this opportunity and immediately blocked it. Lu Ping saw this, and his true spirit sword swept across. The Jade Shura's arm, which was holding the companion's spiritual treasure, was torn off by the sword Qi dragon. Lu Tianyuan and Lu Qiner took the opportunity to attack the Jade Shura when it was down, and the Jade Shura died in Lu Tianyuan's hands. But as the three of them worked together to kill the Jade Shura, there was a sudden grunt from behind Lu Ping. Lu Ping's face changed, and he quickly turned around. He saw that Tian's chest had been pierced by a dagger-shaped companion's spiritual treasure. Behind Tian, Blood Shura, who was grinning hideously, immediately panicked when he saw Lu Ping turn around. He wanted to pull back his companion's spiritual treasure and turn around to escape. But the companion's spiritual treasure seemed to have taken root in Tian's chest, and it didn't move. Lu Ping could clearly see that Tian's hands were in front of his chest, and he was holding the dagger that had pierced through his chest. Big brother. Lu Ping's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The Blood Shura didn't even dare to take his companion's spiritual treasure anymore. He turned around and tried to escape, but it was too late. Just as he was about to pull out his companion's spiritual treasure to escape, it was already too late. The sword Qi of the dragon came roaring, and the Blood Shura was completely destroyed. But Tian's hands were still holding the companion's spiritual treasure in his chest, and he smiled at Lu Ping. Then his eyes lost their light, and he fell to the ground. Big brother. Senior brother Tian. Tian's death shocked everyone in Jinling. Almost all the cultivators in Jinling went crazy. Even Xie Tianyang and the others were affected by this tragedy, and they all launched counterattacks. For a moment, although Lu Ping didn't have an absolute chance of winning because he was free, he actually had the upper hand. Before Lu Ping's sudden rise and Lu Tianyuan's smelting of the Dharma form soul, Tian was the well-deserved number one among the third generation of disciples in Jinling. When Lu Ping and Lu Tianyuan were still struggling to reach the core forging stage, Tian, as the first disciple under Jiang Tianlin Laozu, had become Jiang Tianlin Laozu's right-hand man, and he began to take charge of the sect's affairs. In Jinling, Tian was the most respected and most prestigious disciple among the entire third generation. Some even regarded him as a capable candidate for the next sect master of Jinling. When the battle between Jinling and Mara was at a stalemate, it was Tian who made the first sacrifice and killed Blood Shura at the cost of injury, which gave Jinling a chance to breathe. When Han Wuya and Hua Wuyin retreated and Jinling fell into the most critical situation, it was Tian who blocked Blood Shura's sneak attack at the cost of serious injury, which stabilized Lu Ping's last line of defense, which was already on the verge of collapse. But now, when Jinling was about to achieve the final victory against Mara's army, Tian finally failed to escape Blood Shura's assassination. It was not that he could not escape, but that the successive serious injuries made it impossible for him to escape Blood Shura's attack from behind. Lu Ping reached out and grasped in the air, and a river of spiritual qi instantly formed. Tian's corpse floated on the river of spiritual qi and slowly floated into Jinling Station. For the battle of this station, Jinling had paid a heavy price. Lu Tianyuan and Lu Qiner had already entered the battlefield. With the successive deaths of an Azura and a Jade Shura, Jinling had freed up enough manpower, and there was no doubt that Jinling would win this battle. But at this time, all the Jinling practitioners were holding back their anger, which was to seize as many battle points as possible, so that the practitioners from various sects who came out to take advantage of the situation would not be able to gain anything. At this time, the practitioners from various sects had already entered the battlefield. Although Mara's army still had the advantage of numbers, among the high-level practitioners above the Dharma phase, the human clan had an absolute advantage. And without Mara's harassment, Xie Tianyang and the others had also displayed their strength. The Blood Shura that had been harassing Xie Tianyang was lured away, and the Jade Shura in front of him was instantly stabbed twice by Xie Tianyang's sword. At this time, a mid-Dharma adept had also taken advantage of the situation, and wanted to join Xie Tianyang in attacking the Jade Shura to steal the battle points. Get lost! Xie Tianyang roared, and the blazing sky sun sword did not attack the Jade Shura, but instead slashed at the mid-Dharma adept who was trying to steal the battle points. Ah, Xie Tianyang, what are you doing? Are you with Mara? This adept was quite unlucky. He had originally attacked Mara's escape route to steal the battle points, but he did not expect Xie Tianyang to turn and attack him instead. But the Jade Shura was also angry that someone had attacked her from behind, and she also threw her spiritual treasure at him. This adept was just an ordinary mid-Dharma adept who had taken advantage of the situation, so there was no way he could block the combined attack of the Jade Shura and the heir of the Ziyang Palace. He was immediately hit so hard that he spat out blood, and before he could take advantage of the situation, he was already covered in injuries. Although the adept was filled with hatred, the person in front of him was the heir of the Ziyang Palace, and he was not someone he could provoke. He had no choice but to retreat from the battle. With Xie Tianyang's status, since he had already made it clear that he would not allow others to steal the battle points, the other adepts all went around him. There was no need to offend the heir of a holy land. When an early Dharma adept joined the battle, the first thing he did was not to steal the battle points from Jinling, but to fly directly to a position in the middle of the battlefield. Before this, when Tian Fan Laozu had fallen, the spiritual treasure fan in his hand had fallen to the ground. Tian Shui Laozu had also been prepared to die, so she naturally did not think of picking up the spiritual treasure. After that, the Longhuai ancestor had saved Tian Shui Laozu, but under the attack of the Azura, he had not been able to pick up the spiritual treasure in time. As a result, the battle had continued until now, and the spiritual treasure had still been left there on the battlefield. There was more than one person who had their eyes on this spiritual treasure. Just as the early Dharma adept was about to snatch it, there were also two other Dharma adepts who had already discovered the location of the spiritual treasure, and they rushed forward to snatch it. However, right after that, a flash of sword light flashed past, so fast that no one could react in time. Following that, another two cries of pain could be heard. The two people who had snatched the spiritual treasure before the early Dharma adept had their wrists cut off by the sword light. A silhouette stood there and slowly squatted down. With both hands, he picked up the spiritual treasure fan and kept it in his ritual storage device. When he lifted his gaze to look at the few adepts who wanted to snatch the spiritual treasure, his eyes were filled with a cold, murderous intent. Lu Tianping, what are you trying to do? We came here with good intentions to help, but you actually attacked us so viciously. Lu Ping smiled sinisterly and said, Help? This is Zhenling's spiritual treasure. Whoever tries to snatch it, I will kill them. His murderous intent surged in all directions like a huge wave, causing all the surrounding adepts to shut their mouths. This was a ruthless person who could even kill Azuris. At this time, no one dared to challenge Lu Ping's patience, and no one dared to go and verify what Lu Ping had said. When they had rushed to the battlefield under the guise of helping, they had indeed taken some of the pressure off Zhenling. However, this was originally a battle that Zhenling had already won. Even if these adepts had not rushed to help, Zhenling would at most have delayed the time of victory. However, although these people had rushed into the battlefield at this time, in most cases, they did not fight to the death with Mara. Most of the time, they would leave after one blow. However, every time a blood Shura fell into a state of near death, these people would attack with all their might and snatch the last blow. They were the typical type of people who were only willing to take credit and not put in more effort. However, at this time, the Jinling adepts were already tired from the continuous battles, and there were very few who could snatch the last blow from these people. Qin Yu and Qin Gang had just used the power of the protective array to severely injure a blood Shura. They did not expect that immediately, 3 Dharma adepts would rush towards the blood Shura in front of them, wanting to give it the last blow. Qin Yu and Qin Gang were furious, but at this time, it was already too late for them to snatch it. Seeing that they were about to lose the points that they had worked so hard to obtain, a little person about a foot tall suddenly appeared behind the blood Shura and kicked the blood Shura's butt. The blood Shura immediately flew forward. Qin Yu and Qin Gang were overjoyed. The two quickly rushed forward. Qin Gang blocked the blood Shura's struggling attack and Qin Yu took the opportunity to behead the Blood Shura. Chapter 1287. The three Dharma adepts were furious that their attacks had missed. One of them yelled at Lu Shaohai, "What is this thing? Why does this Zhenling have so many weird things?" When the other two people heard this, they quickly distanced themselves from this person, as if they didn't know this person. The cultivator was slightly taken aback. Then he saw Lu Shaohai was looking at him with a stubborn nose and snorted. The cultivator was startled. He was very familiar with the face of this little person. Previously, when he slaughtered everyone, he had shocked the surrounding cultivators. Could it be that this little person was the legendary avatar of Avatar? The cultivators suddenly realized why the other two had run so far away. They had no sense of loyalty. But it was better to avoid this little person first. He didn't want to attract the attention of the Zhenling. Just as Lu Ping sent out his clone, the thin stream sword had already cut off the path of retreat for Mara, who was fighting Lao Zu of Sky Mountain. By then, the humans had already gained the upper hand. Seeing that the situation was not looking good for them, the Mara army began showing signs of collapsing. However, due to the fact that they had been entangled with Zhenling faction for too long, the cultivators from the various sects had stepped in to assist them. Thus, it became harder for the Mara army to flee. The Jade Shura saw that the situation was not good, and it wanted to fight and retreat. But Lu Ping saw it, and he cut off its path of retreat. The Jade Shura panicked. After seeing Lu Ping kill the Azura, how could a Mara not panic when it saw Lu Ping? But the more panicked the Jade Shura was, the more openings it revealed. A lotus bloomed under Lu Ping's feet, and the Jade Shura was immediately suspended in the air. Although it was only for a short moment, it was enough for Lao Zu of Sky Mountain to smash the Jade Shura's head with his axe. Qin Yu, Qin Gang, Lu Qiner, and Lu Tianyuan all killed their opponents with Lu Ping's help. Zhenling's side was now more confident when it came to fighting for Blood Mara's battle glory. After Lu Ping helped Lao Zu of Sky Mountain kill the Jade Shura, Lao Zu of Sky Mountain immediately went to help the other cultivators who were fighting Jade Mara. The cultivators who came out to fight were all very smart. Aside from getting the last hit, if they weren't confident, they wouldn't fight Mara head-on. Aside from some of them who had good training, most of them were only going for Blood Mara. They didn't want to fight the Jade Shura. Aside from the Jade Shura's power, they didn't want to fight her. More importantly, the cultivators on Zhenling's side who were fighting the Jade Shura were difficult to deal with. Chan Yu and Chan Xiang originally had a hard time facing the two Jade Mara and the two Blood Shura after Lu Tianyuan left. But after Lu Tianyuan, Lu Qiner, and the Qin brothers were freed up, the first to help were the two sisters. Without the Blood Shura holding them back, the two sisters were planning to raise their spirits and show the power of the Heavenly Moon sect's female cultivators. Unexpectedly, just as the two of them worked together to suppress the two Jade Mara in front of them, Han Yu Lao Zu of the Blue Mountain sect suddenly attacked the Jade Demon from behind. He killed the Jade Demon in one fell swoop and snatched 15 battle glory from the two sisters. The two sisters, Chan Yu and Chan Xiang, had fought with Mo Luo for half a day and finally had the chance to kill points with great difficulty. Who would have thought that someone would appear out of nowhere and snatch away the points that they were about to obtain? The two direct disciples of the Heavenly Moon sect instantly exploded with anger. This time, the Frost Feather ancestor had really provoked a hornet's nest. The two sisters easily killed the remaining Jade Shura. Then, the two sisters didn't fight with the others for battle glory. Instead, they stared at Han Yu Lao Zu. Wherever he went, the two sisters would follow far behind. Once Han Yu Lao Zu tried to snatch the battle glory from others, the two sisters would immediately attack. Even if they couldn't snatch it, the two sisters definitely wouldn't let Han Yu Lao Zu snatch it himself. The two of them also wouldn't fall out with Han Yu Lao Zu. Instead, they stuck close to him like sticky candy. Han Yu Lao Zu could be considered an expert among the mid-Dharma adepts. He could also control one of the sect's first calamity spirit treasures. The Blue Mountain sect could be considered a large sect in the Central Plains. If it was just based on individual power, Chan Yu and Chan Xiang were on par with him. However, ever since Han Yu snatched a Jade Demon from the two of them, the three of them started to fight. Han Yu Lao Zu tried to snatch and kill two Blood Shura twice, but he didn't succeed. Instead, he was killed by the two sisters. After that, there were two more chances for him to snatch and kill the Jade Demon, which was destroyed by the two sisters. Ever since Hanyu Laozu snatched a Jade Demon from the beginning, he didn't get any more after being harassed by the two sisters. Hanyu Laozu suppressed his anger. However, he was the one who made the first move, so he didn't have any reason to argue with the two sisters. Hanyu Laozu wanted to force the two sisters to retreat, but when he thought of their status, Hanyu didn't have any confidence. The Blue Mountain sect couldn't compare to the Heavenly Moon sect. He couldn't argue with them, couldn't beat them, and couldn't afford to offend them. Hanyu Laozu had no choice but to beg for mercy from the two sisters. Unfortunately, the two sisters didn't care at all. As long as Hanyu Laozu made a move, the two sisters would follow behind him again. It was said that the female practitioners of the Heavenly Moon sect were difficult to deal with. Even the Crystal Palace would have a headache whenever they saw them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to resist the Crystal Palace for thousands of years. Today, he had accidentally offended these two women. He really reaped what he sowed. Aside from the two sisters, there was another person who was frantically fighting for points. However, this person wasn't one of the cultivators from the various sects who came under the banner of rescue. It was Xie Tianyang. Without Blood Mara holding him back, how could the Jade Shura be Xie Tianyang's opponent? The blazing sky sun sword danced in the air like a fireball, burning the Jade Shura trapped in the sword formation into a dried corpse. Then, Xie Tianyang began to fight for points on the battlefield. Xie Tianyang had been provoked by Lu Ping. Before the last battle began, Lu Ping's points had already reached 50. After that, Lu Ping killed two Blood Shura. Then, with the help of Han Wuya and Huo Wuyin, the two great cultivators who had their minds controlled, he killed two Jade Shura and one Jade Demon. At this time, Lu Ping's points had reached a terrifying 91. But that wasn't the end. Lu Ping cast sky-opening swordsmanship and successfully killed an Azura, earning him 20 battle points. His battle points on the projection stone rose to a despairing 111 points. Although Xie Tianyang couldn't see Lu Ping's reflecting stone, he remembered Lu Ping's points clearly. Looking at his own reflecting stone, which only had 23 points, Xie Tianyang was annoyed. Although Lu Ping had killed an Azura, Xie Tianyang still didn't believe that there was such a big gap between him and Lu Ping. Compared to those cultivators who were fighting for battle credits, Xie Tianyang appeared even crazier and more unscrupulous. He did not even spare the blood demon Azura who was fighting against the cultivators of Jinling's sect. With a single slash, he killed a blood Azura who was fighting against Yunjian, leaving Yunjian baffled. But then he saw Xie Tianyang enter the fight between Green Fox and the others, and kill two blood Shuras. Yunjian murmured to himself, "This Xie Tianyang must be crazy." Fortunately, Xie Tianyang wasn't completely crazy. As Green Fox and the others watched in shock, the blazing sky sun sword knocked away the Jade Shura's spiritual treasure and then flew to the next target. Without the protection of the spiritual treasure, the Jade Shura was beaten up by Green Fox and the others. After a while, the Jade Shura was killed by Green Fox. Qinghu cursed angrily, while Qinghu smiled bitterly. This guy, Xie Tianyang, was like a starving, ferocious beast. He was so hungry that he could not be choosy. After snatching Cloud's word, Cyan Fox, and the others, he charged into the other battles and began to plunder the battle points of others. Amidst the cries and curses of the cultivators from the various sects who had rushed over to rescue him, Xie Tianyang's raging inferno heaven sun sword did not give anyone a chance to reason with him and only cared about killing. "Xie Tianyang, what are you doing? There's no need for you to interfere with this blood demon. Get lost." Xie Tianyang spat out these words viciously, and he had already run into the middle of the battle that was surrounding the two blood Azuras. A mid-Dharma adept saw Xie Tianyang rushing over with a murderous look and wanted to stop him. At the same time, he said, "Friend Xie, I am Kuin. Get lost." Xie Tianyang destroyed all the magic treasures of the cultivator of the same level, who had not even had the time to report his name. He spat out a mouthful of blood and rushed into the battle. Amidst the screams and curses of the crowd, he beheaded two blood Azuras. The cultivator who had been sent flying by Xie Tianyang struggled to get up and said, Xie Tianyang, aren't you afraid of angering the crowd? Xie Tianyang squinted and said in an evil voice, Fine, I'm angering the crowd. Come at me. The friar was furious. He pointed at Xie Tianyang and said, You. For a long time, he couldn't say a word. Then he remembered that Xie Tianyang was the proud disciple of the #1 Holy Land in Central Plains, Ziyang Palace. He was born to be the only one who could offend others. He thought about how his accusation seemed to have angered Xie Tianyang. Would this attract the wrath of Ziyang Palace for his own sect? So he coughed and spat out a mouthful of blood. His whole body trembled, and he didn't know whether it was from fear or anger. He didn't even care about fighting for the points and left Jinling's station in a hurry. Not long after, Su Jin, Sang Yu, Xiahou Wushang, and the others also finished off their opponents and joined in the fight for the points. As for Jinling's own practitioners, except for the strong practitioners like Lao Zhu of Tianshan and Lu Tianyuan who were still participating in the battle, the rest of the early Dharma adepts all retreated to Jinling's station. Other practitioners with ulterior motives took the opportunity to attack Jinling's station. At this time, Lu Ping had taken advantage of the fact that everyone's attention was focused on the battle for points to sneak into the Qingming River's water vein. Chapter 1288. The outcome of the battle outside the True Spirit encampment had already been decided. All that was left was for the cultivators from the various sects to hunt down Mo Luo and plunder his points, as well as Ancestor Lin Yu and Ancestor Long Huai who were entangled with the two Azuras. While everyone was focused on stealing points, Lu Ping returned to the base after helping Lao Zhu of Sky Mountain kill the Jade Shura. At the array board's location, Ling Long had retracted the water vein support to the array formation, but Lu Ping still left Lu Xiaohai for Black Fox to protect himself. He then summoned Sanling and the others to guard the array board. At the same time, seeing the chaos outside the encampment, Lu Ping ordered Lu Qiner, Yun Jian, the Qin brothers, and the others to retreat to the encampment just in case. Seeing that everything was fine, Lu Ping cast the water transformation secret technique and snuck into the Qingming River. With the protection of the pure yang spiritual treasure, the water transformation secret technique, Lu Ping's mastery of the water transformation secret technique grew stronger. Back then, he was able to escape from the Five Elements sect and the other sects search for him. Now, it was a piece of cake for him to sneak into the Qingming River and find the water vein. At this moment, the waters of the Qingming River were still turbulent. However, compared to before, the extent of the turbulence had decreased significantly. It was clear that after the various sects had gathered in the Nine Profound Tower, they had already reduced the pressure on the Nine Profound Tower, even though they had yet to launch a large-scale attack on the evil Luo army. This time, Lu Ping wanted to secretly separate a small branch from the Qingming River's main water vein. Then, he would use the Ling Long wine cauldron that was used to suppress the 5 elemental ring in the encampment's array disk to guide the branch to the encampment. Although the secret technique of separating and guiding the water vein was only in the hands of a few sects, it was obviously nothing to the spirit treasure transformed from the water transformation talisman. Moreover, with the exquisite dragon and the 5-element ring as a suppression, it was completely possible to stabilize the water vein. Most importantly, Jinling's base was not far from the Qingming River. He didn't need to open a canal like Wuxing School to guide the water. He only needed to connect to an underground river to guide the water. The only worry was that when he separated the water vein, no matter how big or small the water vein was, it would inevitably cause a change in the Qingming River. Such a big movement would inevitably attract the attention of those with ulterior motives. Therefore, Lu Ping could only seize the opportunity during the battle with Mo Luo to separate the water vein and divert the cultivator's attention. While the various sects were fighting, De Bao had already opened up an underground river under the surface of the Qingming River with Daguay that led directly to the array disk at the encampment more than 200 feet deep. Lu Ping was hundreds of feet deep in the Qingming River, with a huge pair of scissors hovering over his head. In front of him was the misty water of the Qingming River. Lu Ping looked at the mantis on his shoulder and said, "Are you sure there's no problem?" The mantis tilted its head, as if it was rolling its eyes, and said, You should worry about whether you still have enough Zhen Yuan to control the main body of the spiritual treasure after a series of battles. Lu Ping laughed and said, "It's almost time." At that moment, the Jade Mara outside the base had been killed, and the only ones left were the Blood Mara, who were fleeing in all directions, and the two Azuras who were being entangled by Lin Yu Laozu and Longhuai Ancestor. At that moment, Laozu of Tianshan happened to be chasing behind a blood demon. This blood demon was surrounded by more than 10 big Mara. They were resisting Laozu of Tianshan, while trying their best to break out of the encirclement and return to Mara's base camp along the Qingming River. At that moment, a spear flew in front of Mara's army, piercing through two great Azuras in front of it, and headed straight for the blood demon that was surrounded by the big Mara. Laozu of Tianshan narrowed his eyes, and the mountain-splitting axe in his hand arrived first. There was an explosion in the air, and the spear was knocked away by the second tribulation spiritual treasure. "This is the old man's prey. Don't you dare snatch it." Laozu of Tianshan stretched out his hand and recalled the mountain-splitting axe. The blood demon was suddenly blocked by a human practitioner, and it was in a panic. It was obvious that Laozu of Tianshan, who was chasing after it, had gotten into a conflict with the person in front of it. He did not even care about the minions around him, and he flew straight to the side, which happened to be above the surface of the Qingming River. Laozu of Tianshan snorted coldly and was about to chase after him, but he saw that the spear had also landed in the hands of a mid-Dharma adept. He snorted coldly at Laozu of Tianshan and said, "Your sect has already won today's battle, and you have accumulated enough battle merits. Why don't you give them a share?" Naturally, Ancestor Tianshan didn't have a good attitude towards these people. However, this wasn't the time to turn hostile. He just said coldly, "Battle merits are earned through real strength. They aren't given to you by others, nor are they obtained through trickery." The friar's face turned red. He obviously knew that Laozu of Tianshan was mocking them for being the third party in a fight. They did not expect Jinling to win so quickly that they did not even have time to react. Jinling's side had already almost killed Mara, who had accumulated the most battle merits. The friar took a deep breath and said, "Today's matter is indeed a little shameful, but as you said earlier, battle merits are earned through fighting. Therefore, I still want to fight for this blood demon." Laozu of Tianshan glanced at the Qingming River and suddenly laughed. "As you wish, then." The two of them fought at the same time. Although they did not attack each other, they were able to block each other from attacking the blood demon. At the same time, when the blood demon saw that the two of them had blocked its escape route, it decided to go all out and fight the two of them. The two of them and the blood demon fought fiercely on the surface of the Qingming River. In an instant, the Qingming River was turned upside down, and the waves surged as if there was a hurricane on the sea. The adept with the spear laughed and said, "Although you have a second disaster spiritual treasure, your strength may not be that strong. This is a little disappointing. Then take my next blow." There was another loud sound, and the Qingming River once again surged with waves that were 20 to 30 feet high. The entire river began to shake. At this moment, Azura, who was frightened by the unkillable Longhuai Ancestor, saw that his side was about to be slaughtered and thought of running away. Ancestor Longhuai still wanted to stop Azura, but he didn't grasp the right moment to stop Azura this time, and he was swept away by the aura of Azura's companion spirit treasure, causing him to fall all the way into Azure Netherriver. Longhuai Ancestor took the opportunity to shake off the force on his body into the river to dissolve it. This section of the river was even pushed back for more than 30 feet, and then an even bigger wave was stirred up. Amidst the muffled rumbling sounds, the section of Qingming River outside of Jinling's encampment was filled with strong winds and huge waves. Under the impact of the huge waves, the cultivators from various sects who were still fighting could feel that the shore on this side of the river was constantly swaying from the impact of the huge waves. They all secretly sighed in their hearts at how this Jinling could produce so many evildoers. 2 miles upstream of the encampment, there was a water vein that was more than 100 feet deep. Not far away, the turbulence caused by the battle could even be clearly felt from here. Lu Ping smiled lightly and said, "It's about time. Let's begin." The mantis jumped down from Lu Ping's shoulder and disappeared into the scissors in his hand. Then, a bluish-purple halo began to enshroud the scissors. Lu Ping's right hand suddenly opened, and with a zing sound, the edge of the scissors suddenly opened up. Then, with all of Lu Ping's divine sense, he finally seized the opportunity to cut along the edge of the main water vein, and a water vein as thick as a chopstick was immediately separated from the main water vein. And at the moment when the pure yang spiritual treasure scissors were cut, the entire Qingming River suddenly shook, directly affecting the surface of the water from more than 100 feet deep. Waves surged up and pounced in all directions. In an instant, the flow of the Qingming River seemed to be in chaos. The waves collided with each other, and very quickly, layer upon layer, piled up to a height of several tens of feet, and then fell down heavily, smashing on the edge of the river, as if the entire ground was shaking. Under the water, Lu Ping almost lost his balance under this violent turbulence. Seeing that the small water vein that was separated was about to merge with the main water vein again, Lu Ping hung the water moon repellent pearl above his head, and soon he was no longer affected by the turbulence of the river. Lu Ping took the opportunity to cast attraction array, and the Linglong wine cauldron that was suppressing the 5-element ring shook. The separated water vein finally no longer merged with the main water vein, and the silver fox near the array disk quickly ordered several array masters of Zhenling to open the traction array. Under the effect of the 5-element ring and the Linglong wine cauldron, the small water vein that was separated by Lu Ping finally slowly lengthened from the main water vein and spread towards the underground water channel opened by Dabao. It's done. Lu Ping was overjoyed. With the help of this small water vein, he could save a lot of cultivation resources for Zhenling's encampment, and it would also improve the encampment's defense. Another deafening rumble rang out from the Cyan Netherworld River as Patriarch Long Huai was flung from the surface of the river to the shore by the Azura. He crashed into a cliff on the shore, causing the earth to quake and the mountains to shake. The Azura finally broke free from Patriarch Long Huai's entanglement and fled downstream along the Cyan Netherworld River. In Zhenling's encampment, when the earth shook, the encampment also shook. The silver fox's face lit up with joy, and she said, "It's done." Then, the blue light that leaked out from the Linglong wine cauldron suddenly disappeared, and the 5-element ring shone brightly. Fortunately, the silver fox and the others quickly suppressed it, and the sudden strengthening of the array formation did not appear on the protective array formation outside the encampment. Outside the encampment, Longhuai Ancestor, who was thrown away by the Azura, jumped out of the shore and scathed. Seeing that the Azura had actually escaped, it turned around and joined the battle between Lin Yu Laozu and the other Azura. The battle outside the encampment had ended, and only the Azura that Lin Yu Laozu and Longhuai Ancestor were suppressing was left. At this time, it could not escape even if it wanted to. Chapter 1289. Even though Lin Yu Laozu was not able to use even 50 to 60% of his power, it was not difficult for him to suppress an Azura. Hence, the Azura that could not kill the Longhuai Ancestor could escape when it saw that the situation was not in its favor. This Azura that was being suppressed by Lin Yu Laozu also tried to break out of the encirclement several times, but each time, it was blocked by Lin Yu Laozu. The Longhuai Ancestor saw that the Azura that it was fighting with had escaped, but it did not care. Instead, it turned around and joined Lin Yu Laozu's battle, and began to help Lin Yu Laozu kill the Azura. At this time, the Mara army outside the Zhenling station had basically been wiped out. Occasionally, there were a few Mara that escaped, but they were all small fries, and the crowd did not pay much attention to them. However, at this time, more and more practitioners gradually formed a circle around the battle between Lin Yu Laozu and the Azura, surrounding them. The eyes of some of the cultivators who were not weak flickered. It was obvious that they wanted to kill the Azura in the depths of the mountains. This Azura was worth 20 battle points to a mid-Dharma adept. This time, the battle had been smooth sailing, and many of the mid-Dharma adepts had only managed to kill a few blood demons. In fact, none of the people present had reached 20 battle points. If they could really kill the Azura in the end, their battle points would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. Lu Ping snuck back from the Qingming River and saw that the water was already in place. The power of the entire five elements matrix was gradually increasing, and with a flick of his hand, he put away the wine tripod of the Ling Long. The silver fox looked at the wine tripod and asked in a low voice. Before this, there was a bluish-purple spirit light seeping out of the wine tripod, and it stabilized the defense matrix that was on the verge of collapse. Why does that spirit light look so similar to the water? Lu Ping smiled and said, there was originally a water vein inside. Reverend Mystic Fox stared at Lu Ping with widened eyes. What were the recent major events in the cultivation world? One of them was the crushing defeat of Wuxing School at the foot of Luo Xian Mountain. A mysterious cultivator had taken away half of the Qingming River's branch. Furthermore, this mysterious cultivator had broken the spiritual treasure that originally belonged to Wuxing School in half and triggered the pure Yang Thunder Tribulation at the foot of Luo Xian Mountain. The entire cultivation world was guessing who the mysterious cultivator was. When Jinling and the others entered the central region and heard the news, they were also dumbfounded. After all, it was an incredible thing to be able to be the Oriole under the nose of more than 10 pure Yang Laozu. However, Black Fox did not expect that person to be Lu Ping. Lu Ping smiled proudly and said, how is it? Scared? Black Fox covered his mouth with one hand and nodded vigorously, which made Lu Ping feel even more proud. Outside the station, none of the cultivators from various sects dared to fight with Lin Yu Laozu for the Azura. Before this, Lin Yu Laozu alone was able to suppress the Azura. Now that the Longhuai ancestor had joined in, the Azura was soon beaten to a pulp by the two of them. Lin Yu Laozu smiled and said, fellow cultivator, please end this demonic creature. Longhuai ancestor still had a blank expression and said, this thing is useless to the old man. Just kill it. After saying that, he walked towards Zhenling's station without looking back. Lin Yu Laozu was slightly surprised, but then he smiled and shook his head. With a wave of his hand, the jasper wind flute hit the Azura's head and instantly killed it. Lin Yu Laozu looked around and said coldly, what? Do you want the old man to treat everyone to a cup of tea and have a chat? The cultivators of the various sects did not dare to say anything more. Some had already left quietly, some said goodbye with a laugh, and some casually said a few words to congratulate Jinling's sect on their great victory and so on, and then left without a trace. Although Jinling had won today's battle, it had paid a heavy price. Out of the dozens of middle and late core forging disciples, 11 had fallen, and more than 10 were injured. The casualties amounted to more than half of the disciples. However, the fall of Tian Fan and Tian, the two Dharma adepts, had greatly damaged Jinling's strength. Ever since Jinling had started the path of becoming a large sect, with the cooperation of the entire sect and the careful planning of the few Laozu, it could be said that everything had been smooth sailing. However, suddenly encountering such a blow had really caught Jinling off guard. Tian was one of the leaders of the third generation of adepts, and was even considered as a candidate for Jinling's next leader. The fall of Tian Fan Laozu had also greatly damaged Jinling's strength. Before Tian Xiang Laozu had advanced to the late Dharma stage, the fundamental reason why Jinling was able to stand up to Xin Ling's sect in the North Sea was because the two Laozu, Tian Fan and Tian Shui, had the ability to fight against late Dharma adepts. It could be said that before Tian Xiang Laozu had advanced to the late Dharma stage, the two of them could be said to be Jinling's biggest backers. Even after Tian Xiang Laozu had advanced to the late Dharma stage, the two Laozu, Tian Fan and Tian Shui, were still the cornerstones of Jinling. They were the guarantee that Jinling could firmly suppress Xianling, vast seas, and other sects, and secure its position as the #1 sect in the North Sea. In the North Sea training world, the two Laozu, Tian Fan and Tian Shui, had always been seen as one, and were treated as one great adept. Now that Tian Fan Laozu had fallen, and Tian Shui Laozu had been seriously injured, even after they had recovered, the two of them would no longer be a team. Jinling had essentially lost a late Dharma adept. Such a loss was a huge blow to Jinling's strength and morale. The atmosphere in Jinling was unusually heavy. Tian Shan Laozu began to instruct the disciples to collect the corpses of the fallen disciples, while Lu Ping still had to entertain Xie Tianyang, Sang Yu, and the rest. Lin Yu Laozu was obviously very interested in Longhuai ancestor. However, Longhuai ancestor obviously did not want to have too much contact with Jinling and the rest. After nodding at Lin Yu Laozu, he and Lu Ping came to a secluded place. We came a little late. Otherwise, your martial granduncle and senior might have been able to save them. Lu Ping smiled bitterly. Jinling is already grateful that you were willing to lend a helping hand. If not for your help, I'm afraid I don't know how many people from our sect would have survived. Longhuai ancestor obviously did not dwell on this matter. He only nodded and said, "This time, you have to enter the 7th Patriarch's Tao altar." Lu Ping looked at Longhuai ancestor in surprise. However, he did not ask for the reason, because he knew that Longhuai ancestor would definitely tell him. As expected, Longhuai ancestor continued, "Think of a way to get a few chiming rocks from Jiao Doran's Tao altar." Longhuai ancestor also wanted chiming rocks, and it had to be from Jiao Doran's Tao altar. This was slightly out of Lu Ping's expectations. However, Lu Ping did not ask Longhuai ancestor for the reason. Instead, he said, "Senior, why don't you go to the Tao altar yourself? With your strength, even if you're just an avatar, you're one of the best among the great cultivators of the same realm. You only need to use the imaging stone to obtain merits." Longhuai ancestor shook his head and said, "This avatar is naturally unable to enter the Tao altar. The old man only wants to hear the voice of Jiao Daoran from all those years ago. So, the more chiming rocks you bring, the better. Of course, it has to be the rocks from Jiao Doran's Tao altar." Lu Ping nodded in agreement and said, "I'll do my best, but I may not be able to enter the Tao altar. Moreover, even if I do enter the Tao altar, I may not be able to obtain the chiming rocks." Longhuai ancestor nodded and said, "Since that's the case, old man will go. I've seen many interesting things in my travels this time." "Oh, right. You just have to be careful of the Yuan clan in the battle to annihilate Mara." "The Yuan clan?" Lu Ping thought in his heart, and he said, "Senior, have you noticed something?" Longhuai ancestor said, "This clan has an indescribable relationship with Peng Daoran from all those years ago. The old man isn't too sure about the specifics, so you just have to be careful." Longhuai ancestor left directly after he finished speaking, and it caused Lu Ping to be at a loss for whether to laugh or cry. What indescribable relationship? The Yuan clan has never denied the fact that they're a direct line descendant of Peng Daoran, so what's there to conceal about this relationship? Even though Lu Ping knew that the deeper meaning behind Longhuai ancestor's words wasn't so simple, merely such a general statement still caused Lu Ping to be slightly bewildered. That fellow Taoist Longhuai has left? Lu Ping returned to the residence while his mind was slightly preoccupied, and Lin Yu Laozu instantly asked with a strange expression when he saw that only Lu Ping had returned, "Oh yes, Senior Longhuai seemed to have some matters to attend to, so he left." Lin Yu Laozu said with slight disappointment, "Unfortunately, this fellow Taoist is extremely mysterious. Longhuai, this name is extremely strange as well. Have you seen this fellow Taoist's true appearance?" Lu Ping was stunned by Lin Yu Laozu's words, and only now did he recover from his shock. Perhaps this external avatar of the Longhuai ancestor was capable of concealing itself from cultivators of the same cultivation realm, but Lin Yu Laozu had obviously noticed something. Not to mention the Longhuai ancestor had been struck numerous times during the battle with the Azuras, yet it hadn't suffered the slightest injury. Lin Yu Laozu didn't believe that there was someone in the cultivation world that could condense the body to such an extent. Lu Ping hesitated for a moment, yet he still said, "I haven't seen this senior's full appearance." Lu Ping wasn't lying when he spoke these words. The Longhuai ancestor's main body was enormous, and Lu Ping was really unable to see his full appearance at that time. Truly a pity. This fellow Taoist Longhuai's external avatar technique is much more formidable than yours. Lu Ping understood that Lin Yu Laozu wanted to say that the Longhuai ancestor's external avatar already possessed such strength, so what sort of level had his main body reached? However, Lu Ping smiled and said, "That's only natural. Junior's external avatar technique was originally taught to me by Senior Longhuai." 3 days later, Chan Yu, Chan Xiang, Xiahou Wushang, Yunjian, and Su Jin took their leave first, whereas Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu stayed behind. Even though they were nominally waiting for Lu Ping to refine pills to heal Wu Yinglan's injuries, as Xie Tianyang had said, Lu Ping knew that these two good friends had stayed behind because Jinling's strength was at its weakest right now. They had stayed behind to deter those who still coveted Jinling's base. Chapter 1290. The battle at Jinling's location had come to an end. However, this time, Mara's army did not only break through the encirclement at Jinling's location. Furthermore, the number of Mara's army that broke through the encirclement at Jinling's location had far surpassed the number of soldiers that broke through the encirclement at Jinling's location. This was also the reason why after the battle at Jinling's location erupted, the 13 pure young Laozu, who were in charge of mobilizing all the cultivators from the various sects to encircle and annihilate Mara's army, would not be left alone. Other than Lin Yu Laozu, no one else had shown up. Compared to the 3 Azuras leading the 3,000 Mara's army at Jinling's location, the Skyward Pavilion's encirclement at the southern part of the 9 profound towers Qingming River downstream had encountered the invasion of over 10,000 Mara's army led by 3 heavenly demons and 10 Azuras. In the eastern direction, the Heavenly Profound sect, which had just set up camp not long ago, had also encountered the assault of 2 heavenly demons and 7 Azuras. It was said that even Xiao Baiyu had rushed over to assist the 7 Laozu. In the northwestern direction, the Xiang Palace, and the northeastern direction, the Yuan family had also encountered the assault of Mara's army led by the heavenly demons. As for the southeastern direction, the South Sea Talisman Pavilion had also encountered the assault of Mara's army. Although there were no heavenly demons leading them, there were still 7 to 8 Azuras. Their strength far surpassed the assault of Mara's army at Jinling's location. Furthermore, the battle at Jinling had ended within a single day. They had repelled the assault of 3,000 Mara's army. In the other directions, the battle with Mara's army that had ended the earliest had lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. As for the battles at the other directions, they had all entered a stalemate. Until now, the outcome had yet to be determined. Tian Shuelaozu had only fainted for a day before waking up. Originally, Lu Ping and the others were worried that Tian Shuelaozu would die. However, they had clearly underestimated Tian Shuelaozu. Tian Fan has already fallen. Since Tian Fan has already fallen, I won't die so easily since I didn't chase after him at that time. I still want to live well and see the day when our sect becomes a large sect for Tian Fan. However, I'm currently heavily injured and there's no point for me to stay here. Therefore, I'll bring Tianfan's ashes back to the North Sea. At the same time, if our sect wants to defend this place, we'll need reinforcements from the North Sea. This time, Tian Shan will follow me back. Tianru will be in charge of the matters regarding the station. 2 days later, Tian Shuelaozu and Tian Shuelaozu brought Tian Fan and Tian Tian's ashes back to the North Sea, as well as 5 to 6 severely injured disciples that required a long time to recuperate. In the entire Jinling, only the 3rd-generation disciples were left to guard the sect's encampment. Lu Ping had never been in charge of the sect's affairs. Despite Tian Shuelaozu's orders, the affairs of the encampment were still handled by Li Tianru and Lu Tianyuan. As for Lu Ping, he began to prepare the pure yang blood stasis dispelling pill for Lin Yu Laozu's recovery. As for Wu Yinglan's injuries, from Lu Ping's point of view, it wasn't too serious. Although the injuries of spiritual sense were known to be thorny, Lu Ping had a few secret pill formulas that could treat spiritual sense injuries. After a battle, there was no lack of soul-devouring crystals. After consuming a few of the pills that Lu Ping had meticulously refined, it was only a matter of time before she recovered. Another 3 days had passed. The news of Mara's army breaking through the encampment had spread like wildfire. Xie Tianyang was already unable to hold himself back. Lu Ping knew that the Purple Sun Palace's encampment had also encountered a powerful attack from Mara's army. Even though the Purple Sun Palace was a sacred ground, Xie Tianyang was still the direct disciple of the Purple Sun Palace. It wasn't easy for him to stay in Jinling for 6 to 7 days for the sake of friendship. Hence, he took the initiative and said, "Brother Xie, your sect has yet to repel Mara's army's attack. It's better for you to return quickly." Xie Tianyang didn't mind and smiled. "You can be at ease." Previously, 3rd senior brother had already returned. Purple Sun Palace isn't your Jinling. Even if 3 heavenly demons attacked, they might not be able to break through our encampment. Furthermore, aren't you afraid that if I return to my encampment and start a massacre, my battle merits will surpass yours? Lu Ping chuckled and said, even if you go back now, you might not be able to surpass me. But if you go back now, I believe there will be many people who will surpass you in terms of battle merits. Xie Tianyang was slightly stunned. Previously, during the battle at Jinling's encampment, although he had frantically snatched battle merits at the end, he had only managed to snatch 42 points after the battle. Compared to Lu Ping's over 100 points, there was still a huge gap. The invasion of Mara's army was still ongoing. The gap between Xie Tianyang and the others was far greater than the gap between him and Lu Ping. If Xie Tianyang still didn't hunt down Mara, his battle merits might be surpassed by even more people. Lu Ping could naturally see that Xie Tianyang was extremely concerned about the accumulation of battle merits this time. He had only stayed here for 6 or 7 days because he was worried about the safety of his good friend's sect. Now, the defensive array of Jinling's encampment had become increasingly sturdy and stable with the injection of the water vein. In addition, Lin Yu Laozu wouldn't be leaving Jinling anytime soon. As time passed, his injuries would stabilize, and his strength would also recover. Jinling wouldn't have to worry about encountering too much danger, so he was confident in persuading Xie Tianyang to return to the sect first. After Xie Tianyang left, everything in Jinling's encampment was basically on the right track. Now, they only had to wait for the reinforcements from the North Sea to completely restore their previous strength. At this time, because of Lin Yu Laozu and Lu Ping's presence, Lu Tianyuan, Qing Hu, and the others had begun to join forces to encircle the scattered Mara around the encampment. They gradually expanded their hunting range and gradually began to come into contact with the periphery of Mara's army. From time to time, they would also make some kills, and their battle merits also increased a little. Although the pure young blood stasis removal pill was an extremely high-grade pill, with the support of Lu Ping's current alchemy skills, he was completely confident that he could refine it. It was precisely because it took Lu Ping 3 days to refine the first pure young blood stasis removal pill that Lin Yu Laozu's injuries had significantly improved after taking it that Lu Ping was reassured and persuaded Xie Tianyang to leave first. With the support of Lin Yu Laozu and Lu Ping's collection, a total of 5 batches of spiritual herbs were prepared for the pure young blood stasis removal pill. In the end, 9 pills were produced. 3 of them were taken by Lin Yu Laozu, and the remaining 5 were kept by Lu Ping. This kind of pill was not easy to refine. In addition to the strict requirements of alchemy skills, some of the rare herbs needed to refine the pill were also extremely valuable. If Lin Yu Laozu had not found some of them, even Lu Ping's own collection would not have seen many of them. Half a month after the battle at Jinling's encampment, Lu Ping finally received a message from his sect in advance on this day. Early in the morning, he left the encampment and went dozens of kilometers away. In less than half a day, Lu Ping saw a ball of golden light surging in the sky. As it neared, it slowly split into several rays of light in front and dozens of rays of light behind. Lu Ping was slightly stunned. He did not expect the sect to send so many reinforcements this time. Almost half of the sect's strength had been sent to the Central Plains. Lu Ping hurriedly went forward with a happy expression, but he was still a little surprised. He said, "Uncle Master Xiang, Uncle Master Tianshan, Uncle Master Tianqin, Uncle Master Tiancheng, Brother Lei, why are all of you here? Senior Brother Tianfeng, you have advanced to the Dharma phase." Because of the deaths of Tian Fanlaozu and Tian Tian, the people of Jinling looked a little solemn. Xiang Lu Laozu only smiled, while Tian Qin Laozu snorted coldly. Tian Cheng Laozu, Tian Feng, and Lei Laolu only nodded in acknowledgement. Uncle Master Tanshan said, "This is not the place to talk. Let's go back to the encampment first." The group of Jinling, including Lu Ping and the other 7 Dharma adepts, flew back to the encampment in a grandiose manner. Before they reached the encampment, the Jinling adepts who had rushed to the encampment after hearing the news were all cheering. The gloom that had been brought about by the deaths of the 2 Dharma adepts, Tian Fan and Tian Tian, had finally been swept away. Lu Ping suddenly hovered in midair outside the encampment. Tian Shan Laozu and the others looked at him in confusion. Lu Ping smiled and said, "Uncle Masters, Uncle Master and Senior Brother, please go back to the encampment and rest for a while. I will be there in a while." Only Tianqin and Lao Zu seemed to sense something, and they seemed to be deep in thought. The others looked at Lu Ping suspiciously and returned to the encampment first. After everyone had entered the encampment, Lu Ping smiled at the empty space beside him and said, "I didn't expect Junior Brother Ian to come as well." There was a ripple in the empty space, and Ian Tianchu, dressed in black, appeared not far from Lu Ping. A look of joy flashed in Lu Ping's eyes, and he said, "Junior Brother, you've already passed through your first thunder trial?" Ian Tianchu nodded and said, "My luck is not bad, and it's all thanks to the inheritance of the Ice Dragon Pearl that you gave me. If not for the fact that I'm about to pass through the thunder trial, I might have come to Central Plains earlier. However, I've already heard about Tian Fan and Senior Tian, so I'm late." For Ian Tianchu to be able to advance to the mid-Dharma stage in such a short period of time, other than his own talent, it was obvious that he had his own opportunities. In addition, he had the inheritance of the Zhenling Xian Yin stream and the Ice Dragon clan, so it was not surprising that he had been able to advance to the mid-Dharma stage after Lu Ping. Lu Ping nodded and said, "If not for the fact that you've just passed through your first thunder trial and your unstable aura, it would not have been easy for me to discover you, given your secret technique of concealment." Lu Ping paused and said, "Let's go to the encampment first and talk about it later. We need a place to stay after all." Yin Tianchu hesitated for a moment, but he finally nodded. Jinling's encampment was filled with jubilation because of the arrival of a strong reinforcement. However, when they saw that Lu Ping had brought an unfamiliar practitioner with him, many of the fourth-generation disciples looked curiously at Yin Tianchu, who was by Lu Ping's side. Yin Tianchu had left Zhenling for more than 100 years. Not just the fourth-generation disciples, but even many of the third-generation disciples had already forgotten about Zhenling's Xianyin stream. As for Yin Tianchu, one of the three heroes of Zhenling's third-generation disciples, they had long forgotten about him. They only knew that of Zhenling's one immortal and one demon. The person who was known as the Demon Sword alongside Lu Tianping was a former disciple of Zhenling. Chapter 1291. In the middle of the meeting hall, all the Dharma adepts of Zhenling Station were gathered. Lei Di did not follow them in. Instead, the moment he arrived at the station, he was dragged by the overjoyed Qin Yu and Qin Gang to look for Lin Yu Laozu. Qing Hu and the other two were not in the station, but they were Lu Ping's servants in name. Even if they were in the station, they did not have the right to participate in Zhenling's meetings. In the meeting hall, although Xiang Lu Laozu had the highest seniority, he was an outer elder of Zhenling and did not usually participate in Zhenling's decisions. Although he was sitting at the head of the meeting hall, the person in charge was still Tianshan Laozu. However, at this time, although everyone was discussing something in low voices, it was obvious that the meeting had not officially started. Everyone was waiting for Lu Ping to return. However, when Lu Ping stepped into the meeting hall, the people of Zhenling were stunned to see Yin Tianchu behind Lu Ping. Ji Tianxian jumped up with a shout and said, "Little Lu Ping, you're here too. Haha, I knew it. That's great, that's great. You've actually advanced to the mid-Dharma stage? Ah, this is too much of a blow. It's not enough for our sect to have the water sword deity, and now there's you." Yin Tianchu's arrival obviously made everyone in Zhenling happy. However, Ji Tianchuan's impolite and loud shouting still made Tianqin Laozu, who had been looking better because of Yin Tianchu's arrival, with much difficulty. Now, his face darkened and he scolded, "What are you shouting for? Sit down." Ji Tianxian was shocked by the cold expression on Tianqin Laozu's face. He quickly stuck out his tongue at Yin Tianchu and sat down obediently with a smile. Yin Tianchu, who had always been cold, smiled at his good friend, but in the end, he could not bring himself to smile. Lu Ping chuckled and said, "Martial granduncle, martial uncles, senior brothers, senior sisters, junior brother Tianchu came a step late because of his tribulation, but he still came back in the end." Yin Tianchu silently stepped forward and bowed to the elders of Zhenling. Then, he stood behind Lu Ping. Laozu of Tianshan smiled happily and said, "Going through the heavenly tribulation is a big thing. Now is the time when we need people. You've come just in time. Let's do it. Lu Ping sat down below Tianfeng, and Yin Tianchu sat down next to Ji Tianqian. Lu Ping took the lead and asked, Martial Uncle, although our sect has come to help, the sect is still our foundation. If we transfer so many Dharma adepts, will North Sea seem empty? Although Xiang Lu Laozu had only brought his ears to the meeting hall at this time, there were 3 second-generation disciples, Tianshan, Tianqin, and Tianqing. Above Lu Ping, there were also third-generation disciples like Li Tianru and Lu Tianyuan, who had more seniority than Lu Ping. However, at this time, Lu Ping had the right to speak in this meeting hall, and everyone in Jinling had always thought that this was a matter of course. But this time, it seemed to be a little different. As soon as Lu Ping finished speaking, Tianqin, who was beside Lao Zu of Tianshan, suddenly scolded, Shut up. When did you have the right to speak? Don't you have any manners? This time, not only was Lu Ping stunned and frowned, but the other practitioners in the meeting hall also fell into a strange silence. Tianqing Laozu glanced at Tianqin, expressionless, and then returned to his previous calm state. Ever since Tianqing Laozu's foundation had been severely damaged by Mara in the Battle of Frost Island, although he had recovered, it was difficult for his foundation to recover, and he had almost lost the chance to advance to the mid-Dharma stage. Because of this, Tianqing Laozu had become more and more taciturn. If Lu Ping had not revealed the news of the Samling 5 Elements leaf to him, which restored a glimmer of hope to Tianqing Laozu. But after so many years, there had been no news of this item, and this made Tianqing a lot more discouraged. Tianqing Laozu's eyes flashed with surprise, but he seemed to know the reason why Tianqin Laozu had suddenly scolded Lu Ping. It was just that Tianqin Laozu was a little surprised that Tianqin Laozu would react at this time. Tianqing Laozu coughed and said, All right, let's talk about what has happened in the encampment and the Battle of Joshuan Tower. Li Tianru was naturally displeased that her junior was being scolded, but the other party was an elder after all, and it was Tianqing Laozu who was asking questions at this time. Li Tianru suppressed the displeasure in her heart and told Tianqing Laozu about the recent news of the sects surrounding Mara's army breaking out of the encampment. Lu Tianyuan also added some information, but Lu Ping did not say a word. After listening to their reports, Tianqing Laozu nodded, and then changed the topic to talk about Jinling's current situation in the North Sea. This time, the reason why our sect has transferred so many experts into the central mainland cultivation world is, of course, to build up the reputation of our sect, and also to prevent Mara's army from launching another surprise attack on our encampment and causing damage to our encampment. Although Tianqing Laozu was speaking frankly to all the practitioners in the conference hall, everyone knew that this was actually Tianqing Laozu explaining to Lu Ping the question he had previously. This time, although our sect has lost 2 Dharma adepts in the previous battle, as well as Elder Uncle Xiang and Sister Tianqin, 2 mid-Dharma adepts, as well as Disciple Tianfeng who has just entered the Dharma stage, and Brother Lei who is stationed at Huangli Island. In addition to the original practitioners in the encampment, it seems like we have lost more than half of our main force. However, Brother Jiang will be facing his second Thunder trial soon, and Brother Tianfeng has just passed his first Thunder trial. Our sect has gained another mid-Dharma adept. Tianshang and Tianfeng have also successfully condensed their Dharma powers, and with the addition of Brother Tianshang and Brother Tianhua, who have taken a shortcut to condense their Dharma powers through a secret technique but have not told anyone about it, our sect's power has increased instead of decreased. Therefore, we do not have to worry about the situation in the North Sea. With Uncle Master Tianxiang here, everything will be fine. Tianfeng ancestors' words not only dispelled the doubts of the other cultivators in the meeting hall, but also raised the morale of Jinling sect once again after Tianfeng ancestor passed his first Thunder Tribulation and 3 new Dharma adepts. Tianfeng ancestor's success in overcoming his first Thunder Tribulation and the emergence of 3 new Dharma adepts also raised the morale of Jinling sect. This time, the meeting did not last for long. After everyone left the meeting hall, Tianshan Laozu called out to Lu Ping alone. Back then, Uncle Tianfan and Uncle Tian Shui were the most caring towards your sister Tianqin, especially your Uncle Tian Shui. Back then, her care for Sister Tianqin had reached the point of spoiling her. This was also one of the external reasons why Sister Tianqin and Sister Tianling eventually fell out. This matter was related to the feud between the previous generations, and Tianshan Laozu obviously did not want to explain it too clearly to Lu Ping. This time, Uncle Tianfan died, and Uncle Tian Shui was seriously injured. Because of Uncle Tianfan's death, Sister Tianqin's emotions were a little out of control. So she's taking her anger out on me. Tianshan Laozu laughed bitterly and said, most likely so. You and Tianyuan were the first to send the news back to the North Sea, and you were also the one who strongly advocated for us to participate in this battle against Mara. This camp was also chosen by you, but then Mara's army just had to come here. Lu Ping felt a little helpless. Although this logic made sense, Lu Ping could hear that it was a little far-fetched, and so he said, but I heard that Uncle Tianqin seems to have become a lot more difficult to get along with in the sect these few years. Tianshan Laozu sighed and said, are you trying to say that her temper has become a lot more violent these few years? Tianshan Laozu did not wait for Lu Ping to reply and continued. Ever since she forced herself to go through the first thunder trial and was seriously injured, she has been like this. Her potential was almost depleted when she went through the first thunder trial, and she almost lost the possibility of advancing to the late Dharma stage. For someone as proud as her, this is no different from a death sentence in the future. Lu Ping did not understand and asked, was her foundation damaged when she went through the thunder trial? Tianshan Laozu said, although her foundation was damaged during the thunder trial, it was not serious. Potential is like a practitioner's talent, and it is also equivalent to a practitioner's foundation from the beginning. Sister Tianqin is an alchemist, and she relied too much on elixirs, especially when she broke away from the sect for decades. Without the support of the sect, she could only rely on elixirs to maintain her own cultivation. Although her level of practice did not fall behind, she still lacked some of her own hard work, and her potential was depleted. Lu Ping thought about it and said, the sect leader still has hope of advancing to the late Dharma stage. Tianshan Laozu could only smile bitterly and say, that's right. Actually, for Brother Tianfeng, Brother Tianqing, whose foundation was not damaged, and the old man, advancing to the mid-Dharma stage is basically the limit. But Sister Tianqin is different. She was seen as a genius practitioner from the beginning, on par with Brother Jiang. But now she is at the same level as us. The most important thing is that her level of practice is suppressed by Sister Tianling, and with the matter of Tianfan and Tianxue, Laozu, all of these put together, I think you understand. Lu Ping walked out of the meeting hall helplessly and saw Lei Di, the sixth elder of Lei clan, walking towards him. Lu Ping was a little surprised and asked, why are you here so soon? Sixth elder of Lei clan flashed an indifferent expression and said, whoever wants to rebuild the Luoxin sect can do so, but I won't participate. Lu Ping was stunned and said, Brother Lei, if you don't participate, with just Qin Yu and Qin Gang, the rebuilding of the Luoxin sect won't be that easy. Sixth elder of Lei clan snorted coldly and said, I want them to suffer a great loss, to let them know that rebuilding a sect is not an easy task. With just them alone, they will definitely be badly hurt. But with a pure young practitioner by their side, I think there won't be any problems with their safety. In short, if they want to help, I can, but I won't join the sect. I'm used to being free all my life, and I can't be restricted by others. At this moment, there was a sudden cheer from the square in front of the station. Lu Ping smiled and did not think there was anything wrong with what sixth elder of Lei clan was doing, so he smiled and said, let's go to the square and see what's going on. Chapter 1292. In the square in front of the meeting hall, many Jinling adepts were gathered there, seemingly looking for something. From time to time, they would cheer. Not only were there core forging adepts, but Lu Tianyuan, Green Fox, Tianfeng, Li Tianru, and other Dharma adepts were also there. Lu Ping even saw Ji Tianxian rushing excitedly with Yin Tianxu. Seeing Lu Ping and Lei Laolu walk over, the cheers of the Jinling adepts suddenly increased. Through the gaps in the cheering crowd, Lu Ping saw a 7-foot-tall jade tablet in the middle of the square. It was densely engraved with words that seemed to be constantly changing. Lu Ping's eyes lit up. He smiled at Green Fox and the other two in front of the Jade Tablet. Psychic Jade Tablet? You guys brought back the battle achievements list? Green Fox smiled. That's right. We went to the Ziyang Palace for a few days and brought back the battle achievements list as well. The Psychic Jade card was connected to the imaging stone in the hands of every cultivator who had participated in the encirclement against Devil Luo's army. Once a cultivator successfully obtained battle merit points, the Psychic Jade card would compare the names, sects, battle achievements, and battle merit points of the top 100 cultivators with the most outstanding battle merit points in each phase. It would then be displayed on the Psychic Jade stele for everyone to take a look at. At the same time, it was also to stimulate competition between cultivators from various sections. This time, the 13 Pure Sons had also announced to the various sects that the top 50 Dharma adepts of each stage would obtain the right to enter the 7th Patriarch's altar. From the early Dharma stage to the late Dharma stage. This meant that in the end, there would be 150 Dharma adepts entering the 7th Patriarch's altar. The core forging adepts were also divided into 3 tiers. 3 secret realms were opened for the core forging adepts. The top 100 adepts of each tier would have the opportunity to enter one of the secret realms. However, these 300 core forging adepts would have to hand over 2/3 of what they obtained in the 3 secret realms after exiting the secret realms. At the same time, there was also competition between the sections. The sum of the battle merit points of the disciples was the sum of the battle merit points obtained by the sections. The top 3 large sects, the top 5 medium sects, and the top 10 small sects could also obtain a large amount of cultivation resources. The source of these cultivation resources was 2/3 of what the 300 core forging realm cultivators had obtained from the 3 secret realms. There was also a portion of the cultivation resources provided by the 9 profound house, including spiritual herbs, spiritual materials, spiritual items, magic treasures, etc. Although this operation to encircle and annihilate Mara was a joint operation of the entire cultivation world, it was still to help the 9 Profound Pavilion out of their predicament. If the 9 Profound Pavilion couldn't bring out some substantial benefits in return, it wouldn't be enough. The 6 Holy Lands did not participate in the final battle for the sect's battle merit points. Firstly, the 6 Holy Lands might not be interested in these cultivation resources, and the 9 Profound Pavilion would not even have the chance to participate. Secondly, the 6 Holy Lands were confident that at least half of the rankings on the Psychic Jade Tablet would be occupied by the cultivators from the 6 Holy Lands. There was really no need for them to compete with the other sects for these resources. Looking at the Psychic Jade Tablet, Lu Ping naturally wanted to see his ranking among the mid-Dharma adepts. At that moment, he could not help but feel a little uneasy. After all, in the half a month since the battle at Jinling Station, Lu Ping had been cultivating elixirs in the station and had not participated in any of the battles to encircle and annihilate Mara. Although Lu Ping was quite confident about his results in the battle at Jinling Station, in the past few days, it was inevitable that someone would surpass him. Green Fox's beautiful eyes darted around as she said, "Aren't you going to take a look at your battle merit ranking?" Lu Ping smiled and said, "I was just about to, but I haven't participated in any battles these past few days. I'm afraid my ranking isn't too high." Lu Ping was quite confident that he would be able to enter the top 50 mid-Dharma adepts on the list, but he was not too sure what his ranking would be. Green Fox giggled and tapped on the Psychic Jade Tablet a few times. A row of information about the 50 mid-Dharma adepts appeared on the surface of the tablet. Following closely behind Lu Ping, the Jinling adepts cheered loudly. Even Lu Ping was momentarily stunned, because he saw that the person at the top of the list was Lu Tianping. Lu Tianping, North Sea Jinling Sect, battle merit points. Killed 7 Blood Shura, 2 Blood Demons, 3 Jade Shura, 2 Jade Demons, 1 Azura. Battle merit points, 111. Ranked first. Lu Ping asked curiously, he's still ranked first? From what he could see, after so many days, the battle between the Mara army from the Ziyang Palace, the Skyward Pavilion, and the Tianxian sect was still ongoing. These 3 sects were either holy lands or large sects with strong backing. Logically speaking, there should have been people who had surpassed him long ago. Green Fox said softly, "Do you think everyone is like you, able to kill even Azuris? Those blood Mara are one thing, but which Jade Mara isn't surrounded by a large number of blood Mara, as well as hundreds of big and small Mara? Without 3 to 5 people working together, it would be impossible to kill a Jade Mara that has the advantage in numbers. Lu Ping wanted to say something more, but Green Fox continued to explain, "We were extremely lucky in that battle. Mara's army was originally only 3,000 strong, and they came in 2 waves. When they were attacked earlier, they used a strange technique to kill 500 to 600 of them. After that, when we attacked the encampment, we attacked together and killed 500 to 600 of them. In addition, although they were all big and small Mara's army had not even entered the final battle, but they had lost almost half of their own forces. That was why we had the chance to fight Jade Mara and Blood Mara directly. Even so, there were still a large number of big and small Mara, as well as Blood Mara, guarding them from the side. Otherwise, Xie Tianyang and the others would not have been unable to take down even one Jade Mara. However, after our battle, the Mara on the other battlefields seemed to have learned their lesson. When Mara's army attacked the encampment of the various sects, they rarely split up their forces. Furthermore, the Blood Mara and Jade Mara's minions no longer dared to split up and protect them tightly. If not for that, it would not have been easy to achieve the same results as our sect the other day." Lu Ping nodded. That day, Jinling's results were mostly at the end of the battle. After the Mara's army was defeated, Jinling's subordinates and the other sect's practitioners took the opportunity to kill them. Unless something like that happened again, it would not be easy to kill a high-level Mara on a large scale. Looking from top to bottom, the second place belonged to a cultivator from Purple Sun Palace. However, it was not Xie Tianyang, but the second of the 6 heirs of Purple Sun Palace, Little Shang Sword Fan Mingjia. He had 92 points and was not too far away from Lu Ping. In third place was the direct disciple of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, the Southern Pavilion Master, Nangong Xiaojian. He was right behind Fan Mingjia with 89 points. Surprisingly, in fourth place was not a cultivator from a sacred land, but a cultivator from South Sea Talisman Pavilion. His name was Yu Ziqing, and he had 85 points. When South Sea Talisman Pavilion first set up camp, they were also attacked by Mara's army. Although this Mara's army was far stronger than what Jinling faced, Talisman Pavilion was still a large sect. Later on, the only pure young practitioner in South Sea, Yu Xiang Laozu, came to their rescue. That was how they managed to stop the advance of Mara's army. However, after the battle, Talisman Pavilion also suffered heavy losses. Although they had Grand Adepts and pure young practitioners, the number of Dharma Adepts they had was not much stronger than Jinling's. Although they had the help of a few small and medium-sized sects in South Sea, Mara's army was also much stronger than Jinling's army. Hence, their losses were even greater than Jinling's. It was said that Yu Ziqing was not the third-generation heir of Talisman Pavilion, but a second-generation practitioner. It was said that he was only a step away from advancing to the late Dharma stage. When he heard that there was a chance to enter the 7th Patriarch's altar, he gave up on his training in South Sea and went to Middle-earth to participate in the battle against Mara. However, although his points were high, it was also because he had killed 2 Jade Shuras and 1 Jade Demon, as well as several Blood Mara, when Mara's army was defeated. Hence, he had pushed his points to where he was now. In 5th place was another familiar face of Lu Ping. It was Yuan Feixiang of the Yuan family. It was said that he had been helping the Tianxian sect fend off Mara's attacks on the sea. Lu Ping did not expect him to come to Ninexian Tower this time. His points had also reached 83 points. Although the Yuan family had also been attacked by Mara's army, the Yuan family's unique thunder magic was more effective against Mara's army than any other magic of the same level. For Yuan Feixiang to be able to reach such a level, it was clear that he was also an extraordinary being among the third-generation practitioners. In 6th place was the Tianxian sect's first descendant of the 3rd generation, Chao Jianping. She was a female practitioner, and she also had 83 points. However, she had killed 1 less Jade Demon than Yuan Feixiang, which was why she was in 6th place. In 7th place was none other than Xie Tianyang. Before he left Jinling's base, his points had already reached more than 40. Although he had stayed in Jinling for 6 or 7 days before leaving, when he returned to the Purple Sun Palace, he began to crazily fight for points. However, Mara's army, which was facing the Purple Sun Palace, did not show any signs of collapse. They advanced and retreated in an orderly manner, and although Xie Tianyang did his best, he only managed to push his points to 78. Ranked 8th was Water Crystal Palace's Qin Wuliang. It wasn't that Qin Wuliang couldn't compare to the few people in front of him. It was just that it was easier for the few people in front of him to obtain points in a direct battle with Imo Luo. The battle with Imo Luo was a long one. In just over half a month's time, the victor on the battle merit rankings would not be decided. In 9th place was the Skyward Pavilion's West Pavilion Master, Sima Chongfeng, who was also Lu Ping's acquaintance. In 10th place was the person who had fought with Lu Ping before. It was the 9 Profound Towers' first descendant, Pavilion Master of First Origin, Wei Zhen. This person had escaped from the 9 Profound Tower together with 8th Sister Zhu, who had been besieged by Mara. Now that 8th Sister Zhu had been severely injured by many Azuras in order to kill the Sky Demon, only Wei Zhen was left to bring glory to the 9 Profound Tower. It was not a big deal at all. In fact, Junling had already experienced something like this before. It was just that aside from people like Lu Ping, who had participated in many large-scale battles and was used to the deaths of high-level practitioners, most of the disciples of Junling were not used to this kind of situation. Most of the names on the list of late Dharma adepts were from the Holy Lands, and everyone's name was well known in the world of practitioners. However, to the people of Junling, these names were a little confusing. No matter what, the world of practitioners in the North Sea was still very isolated compared to the outside world. However, the names on the list of early Dharma adepts shocked everyone in Junling. In the 8th place, Lu Tianyuan had killed a Jade Shura, 3 Blood Shuras, a Blood Demon, and more than 10 Big Mara, who were equivalent to late core forging cultivators. He had a total of 78 battle credits and was ranked there. It was a pity that besides Lu Tianyuan, none of the other early Dharma adepts in Junling had made it onto the list. Tian, who had originally been the most hopeful, had died. Li Tianru and Ji Tianxian had been in charge of the 3 talents and 5 elements formation. Samling and Lu Qiner had some battle credits, but the list clearly did not target demon practitioners. Even though Samling and Lu Qiner were Lu Ping's followers, they would still not be recognized by the practitioners of the various sections. Compared to the list of mid-Dharma adepts, the list of early Dharma adepts changed even more. In the short time that everyone was looking at the list, the bottom of the list had already changed 3 times. There was also a person in the middle of the list who had suddenly disappeared. It was obvious that he had also died. Other than these 3 lists that received the most attention, there were also 3 lists of core forging adepts. After a rough look, because Junling did not bring any early core forging adepts to the central mainland this time, there were adepts in the late and mid-core forging adepts on the list. However, their ranks were obviously not very high, and there were not many of them. However, there were obviously fewer adepts from the Holy Lands on the list. This was normal, because the lower the level of cultivation, the smaller the difference in strength. Moreover, there were too many core forging adepts, so it was normal for adepts from other sects to occupy the list. Lu Ping saw Wang Xuanqi's name on the list of mid-core forging adepts. He was ranked 35th. Although the battle with the core forging adepts had been fought with the help of the Dao Soldier formation, so the number of Mara and the chances of each adept killing Mara was relatively equal, and they had also focused on defense, Wang Xuanqi had still used his sharp sword skills to assassinate several large Mara, which was equivalent to a late core forging adept. If it was not for the fact that Junling had been recuperating and did not participate in the battle, Wang Xuanqi's ranking would have been even higher. Finally, he flipped to the ranking of the sect's total battle points. Among the large sects, the Heavenly Mystery Sect, the Yuan Clan, and the Talisman Pavilion were ranked in the top 3, far ahead of them. The few sects after them were also familiar with each other, but their total battle points were slightly lower than the top 3 sections. This was to be expected. After all, these 3 sects had faced the attack of Mara's army head-on. In the ranking of the medium-sized sects, Junling's unsurprising first place made the cultivators in the encampment cheer again. The second place was a family that had crossed paths with Lu Ping before, the Lu family, known as the #1 alchemist family in Middle-earth. However, compared to Zhenling, the difference in battle points was slightly larger. The third place was the South Sea's Yulin sect. This sect was known as the fifth large sect in the South Sea, and it had long possessed the strength comparable to the large sections. However, for some unknown reason, it had never built a treasure ship or opened a super long-distance teleportation array in Middle-earth. Therefore, it had never been recognized as a large sect by the Holy Lands and large sections. However, the Yulin sect's heritage was still there, and it firmly occupied the third place in the sect ranking. Although the battle merits ranking was exciting to watch, this ranking was ultimately only temporary. Whether it was Lu Ping or Jinling, if they wanted to gain the most out of this battle against Mara, they would still have to persevere for a long period of time, and they might even have to pay a heavy price. What Jinling needed to do now was to think of a way to minimize his losses and at the same time, get a good ranking on the battle merits ranking. However, what Lu Ping did not know was that when the psychic jade tablet that recorded the battle merits ranking was placed in the encampment of the various sects, Lu Tianping's ranking among the mid-Dharma adepts attracted the attention of countless people. It could even be described as sensational. This was especially so for the mid-Dharma adepts from the Holy Lands and famous sections. When the battle merits ranking was first released, they did not feel it, but after participating in the battle against Mara for half a month, Lu Tianping's battle merits ranking had not changed at all, but it was still as high as ever. This meant that Lu Tianping did not fight again after the battle at the encampment, but the question was, how was he able to obtain so many battle merits in such a short period of time? Could it be cheating? The more time passed, the more the discussions about Lu Tianping seemed to become more and more unkind. They knew that the news from the Xiang Palace, the Tianxian sect, and the Tianyue sect was that Lu Tianping had single-handedly killed and injured Azura. All sorts of doubting comments began to weaken, and soon after, the news that Lu Tianping had mastered the heaven-opening sword technique also began to spread. Furthermore, the adepts who had witnessed Lu Tianping obtaining battle merits were not only from the Jinling sect, and more people's testimonies finally put an end to these rumors. The first of the third generation of adepts in the cultivation world, this title was indeed well-deserved. Lu Ping pointed at the battle merits ranking and asked Sixth Brother Lei, who was beside him, "Brother Lei, what are your plans?" Sixth Brother Lei smiled and said, "Compared to entering the Seventh Patriarch's Taoist altar, I would rather compete with those guys on the ranking." Lu Ping laughed loudly and said, "That's right, but I hope Brother Lei can lend our sect a hand." Sixth Brother Lei smiled and said, "Of course, I can't use the Luoxin sect's name, right? Moreover, Qin Yu and Qin Gang, those two rascals, also used your sect's name." Lu Ping said, "If that's the case, thank you very much." After saying goodbye to Sixth Brother Lei, Lu Ping went to Lin Yu Laozu's resting place. Seeing that Lin Yu Laozu's aura had become more and more mellow, Lu Ping asked with a smile, "How do you feel now, senior?" Lin Yu Laozu smiled and said, "The pure yang blood stasis removal pill really lives up to its name. The old man's injuries are still mostly healed, and he only needs to rest for a year and a half to fully recover." Naturally, Lu Ping came here to ask Lin Yu Laozu about the latest news about the encirclement against Mara. Lu Ping knew that Lin Yu Laozu had a secret method to communicate with the other 12 pure yang practitioners, and Lin Yu Laozu had never hidden this secret. On the contrary, he would usually send Lu Ping the latest battle reports about the encirclement against Mara. However, this time, Lin Yu Laozu did not talk about the latest battle situation. Instead, he asked, "This time, all the sects have gathered in the Nine Mysteries Tower. What do you think about the battle Mara's army is about to break out of the encirclement?" Lu Ping thought for a while and said, "This is more like a surprise attack by Mara, taking advantage of the fact that the sects have yet to stabilize their footing to catch them off guard. This is somewhat different from the previous records of Mara's bloodthirsty and mindless state. However, even if he has some intelligence, it is still very limited." Chapter 1294. The so-called Battle of Mara's army breaking out of the encirclement was just what the human cultivators had thought of Mara's army at the beginning. In their eyes, the human cultivators had already surrounded Mara's army in another layer of encirclement, so Mara's army would definitely be afraid and break out of the encirclement. But in reality, who knew that Mara's army would definitely be afraid? Mara's army had suddenly split up to attack when the cultivators from the various sects had not stabilized their footing. The Mara's army had different strengths and different charging forces, but they were definitely not trying to break out of the encirclement. This was because, according to the information brought back by the various sects' cultivators, Mara's army was still besieging the 9 Profound Tower, and there were no signs of their main forces moving at all. This meant that Mara's army was well aware of the human cultivators' encirclement, but they clearly did not take it to heart. On the contrary, they fought with the cultivators from the various sects as if they were demonstrating their strength. Lu Ping came out from Lin Yu and Lao Zu's place. Clearly, the two of them were very confused by Mara's army's actions this time. However, there was one thing they had in common, and that was that the Mara's army they were facing this time seemed to be extremely strange. They seemed to be much more intelligent than what was recorded in the records of Mara's calamity in the past. It was not just the individual high-level Maras, but the entire Mara's army seemed to have gained a lot of intelligence and judgment. At the very least, when the high-level Maras faced the threat of death, they were no longer as fearless as before. On the contrary, they knew how to escape. Senior brother Lu. A clear shout interrupted Lu Ping's thoughts. When Lu Ping turned to look in the direction of the voice, he was slightly taken aback. Junior sister Li? The person in front of him was Li Xiuzhu, Tianqin Laozu's last disciple from the East Sea's 3 islands. However, he should now be called Xianzhu. Li Xianzhu was now at the 8th stage of the core forging realm. This speed was not very fast, but it was definitely not slow either. Tianqin Laozu's faction had 4 outstanding disciples. The eldest disciple was Xin Hui, who was Tian's Dao companion. The second disciple was Zhu Xianming, and the 2 youngest disciples were Chu Xinting and Li Xianzhu. Li Xianzhu seemed very excited to see Lu Ping. She was not qualified to enter the meeting hall to attend the meeting, so she did not know that Tianqin Laozu had innocently berated Lu Ping in the meeting hall. She smiled. Senior Lu Ping, Master asked me to invite you. Lu Ping was startled, but he immediately recovered. He smiled and said, Okay. It must be said that the relationship between Tianqin Laozu and Lu Ping was originally very good. Although Tianqin Laozu and Lu Ping's master, the Heavenly Spirit sect, did not get along, this did not affect the relationship between Lu Ping and Tianqin Laozu. Even when Tianqin Laozu returned to the sect, Lu Ping had played a great role. From Lu Ping's point of view, although this junior martial ant held a deep grudge against his teacher, her sense of belonging to Zhenling's sect was unquestionable. This was evident from the fact that she had been away from Zhenling's sect for decades and had even become one of the elders in the boudoir. But when the boudoir established a large-scale sect and invited her to take charge of the Hall of Alchemy, she resolutely refused the invitation. In Lu Ping's view, although Tianqin Laozu was arrogant, she was intelligent, knew the big picture, and had a sense of propriety. Although she was not on good terms with the sect master, and did not mind deliberately making things difficult for Zhonghua's faction when it was harmless, she had never mixed in personal grievances when dealing with the sect's affairs. However, this time, she had publicly reprimanded him in the meeting hall. Although there was an explanation from Tianqin Laozu afterwards, Lu Ping did not think that it was only because of her personal reasons and the matter of Tianfan and Tianshui Laozu that she had vented her anger on him. In his view, Tianqin Laozu's self-control would not be so bad. In other words, even if Tianqin Laozu had a personal grievance, there should be a bigger reason. Although Li Xianzhu was a woman, she had a cheerful personality and was far less meticulous than other women. She did not notice the change in Lu Ping's expression. She only cared about exchanging pleasantries with Lu Ping all the way to Tianqin Laozu's cultivation hall. A female cultivator walked out of Tianqin Laozu's cultivation hall. Seeing Lu Ping coming over, she smiled and said, "Greetings, Senior Brother Lu." This woman was none other than Chu Xianting, the disciple who had been carefully cultivated by Tianqin Laozu and inherited his alchemy skills. Lu Ping smiled and said, "So it's junior sister Chu. Long time no see." This time, junior sister was sent by the sect to take charge of the alchemy in the encampment. Chu Xianting was now also a senior alchemy master in Zhenling. At this time, She came to the central region with Tianqin Laozu, obviously to temporarily take charge of the alchemy in the encampment. After all, in the process of war, the demand for elixirs by cultivators increased, especially those used for healing and recovery, which were in short supply. Chu Xinting smiled and said, "Isn't there no other way? Do you think I can let senior brother Lu take charge of the alchemy in the encampment?" Lu Ping quickly waved his hand and said, "Me? Forget it." Although Lu Ping was an alchemy master, if he was really willing to take charge of the alchemy in the encampment, naturally no one else would have a share, but Lu Ping was not willing to put his energy into this. However, when he was refining the pure yang blood stasis pill for Linyu Laozu, he still took time to refine a batch of other elixirs as a backup. At this time, there was no shortage of high-grade elixirs in Jinling's encampment. Chu Xinting naturally knew that Lu Ping would not take over these things, and what she said before was just a joke. After that, she turned sideways and said, "Teacher is waiting for you inside." Lu Ping nodded and walked into the consultation room. At this time, Tianqin Laozu was standing by the window of the consultation room and looking out of the window, but her eyes were blurred, and it was obvious that she was distracted. She did not even notice that Lu Ping had come in. Tianqin Laozu was known as the first beauty of Jinling in the past. Now that hundreds of years had passed, she was still radiant, and there was a mature and charming temperament all over her body. Lu Ping bowed slightly and said, "Martial uncle, are you looking for me?" Tianqin Laozu's body was slightly startled, but she did not turn around, nor did she speak. For a moment, the atmosphere in the consultation room seemed a little heavy. "Ah, this time, Martial uncle is sorry." After a long time, Tianqin Laozu finally said. Lu Ping was stunned. He did not expect Tianqin Laozu to apologize to him personally, so he quickly said, "What are you talking about, Martial uncle? Isn't it natural for Martial uncle to teach a disciple a lesson?" Tianqin Laozu sneered and said, "Are you still an ordinary disciple? With your current strength, I'm afraid that even Martial uncle Tian Xiang might not be able to defeat you. You are the #1 expert in our sect. From the top to the bottom, who doesn't respect and fear you? Now, I have to be the villain." Lu Ping was taken aback. He didn't know why Tianqin would say such a thing. Then, he heard her say, "Of course, your martial uncle wasn't completely selfless back then. I was just venting my anger on you." Lu Ping was stunned. He did not expect that there would really be a personal grudge mixed in. For a moment, he forgot that Tianqin Laozu had said that he was intentionally being the villain. He said, "Martial uncle, is it because of Tian Fan and Tian Shui, the two martial uncles matter?" This time, it was Tianqin Laozu's turn to be stunned. Hearing Lu Ping mention Tian Fan and Tian Shui Laozu, Tianqin Laozu sighed and said, "It was Senior Tianshan who told you. Did he also say that it was because of the grudge between me and your teacher?" Lu Ping nodded and said, "He mentioned a little, but martial uncle Tianshan did not say much." Tianqin Laozu laughed bitterly and said, "Senior Tianshan is too considerate. He is a good person." Chapter 1295. Lyra Laozu's words made Lu Ping feel very uncomfortable, but he had to admit that Lyra Laozu's words were not without reason. Lu Ping's light in Jinling was too bright, even to the point where people could only look up to him, making those who chased after him feel despair. Even in the eyes of the 4th and 5th generation of Jinling, Lu Ping had become a legendary existence, an existence that no one could touch. Lu Ping said, "Then what should we do? Should we let the sect try to suppress me for a period of time?" Lyra Laozu sneered and said, "Suppress you? Who dares? Who would be willing to?" Lu Ping also felt that he had said a bad idea. Right now, he was not someone that Jinling could suppress. Scratching his head, Lu Ping said, "Then what should we do?" Lyra Laozu said, "What else can we do? At most, we will reprimand you a few words, making people feel that you are still a person, a living disciple of Jinling, and not a legend, an unfathomable existence. Jinling does not want to stand out alone, but to let 100 flowers bloom. In this battle to annihilate Imo Luo, you still have to try your best to stay on the battle merit list and even stay on the top of the list. But our sect still needs other people to appear on the battle merit list, not just you. At the same time, Jinling's sect also has to fight for a better position on the overall battle merit list of medium-sized sections. In other words, in the upcoming battle, the main strength of the sect will be concentrated on other people, and I am afraid that you will have to rely on yourself more often. Lu Ping finally understood what Lyra Laozu meant, and at the same time, it was also what the sect meant. The rise of Jinling needed more people to stand up, not just one Lu Tianping. In fact, this was actually a kind of protection for Lu Ping to some extent. At least when other people of Jinling stood up, Lu Ping would share a lot of the pressure. However, Lu Ping did not care about this. Without the help of the sect, it may be difficult for Lu Ping to maintain the first place on the list, but it was not difficult for Lu Ping to stay in the top 50. Lu Ping was still very confident in his own strength. However, Lu Ping still felt that Lyra Laozu seemed to be hiding something. At the very least, when she scolded Lu Ping in the meeting hall that day, there was a strong resentment. Martial Uncle said before that you also have resentment in your heart, but Disciple seems to feel that Martial Uncle does not agree with Martial Uncle Tianshan's explanation. I wonder if Martial Uncle's resentment in your heart is related to Teacher. Lyra Laozu suddenly looked up at Lu Ping, but saw that Lu Ping was calmly looking at her. Lyra Laozu hesitated for a moment, then said, "How much do you know about the resentment between me and Lu Tianling?" Lu Ping hesitated for a moment, then said, "Disciple also heard a lot." Heard a lot. Lyra Laozu smiled coldly, then said with great melancholy, "I am not as good as your teacher." This time, it was Lu Ping's turn to be shocked. His understanding of this martial uncle had always been that she was proud and strong, especially towards teacher Lu Tianling. It could be said that she would compete with Lu Tianling in everything, but he did not expect that one day she would say that she was not as good as teacher Lu Tianling. Seeing Lu Ping's shock, Lyra Laozu laughed. "What? You don't believe what martial uncle said?" This made Lu Ping not know how to answer for a moment, so he could only say, "It's not that Disciple doesn't believe martial uncle's words, but I don't believe that these words came from martial uncle's mouth." Huh. Lyra Laozu laughed bitterly. "Sure enough, even you think that I am not as good as Lu Tianling." Lu Ping blinked his eyes. This time, he learned his lesson and kept quiet. "Forget it. There are some things that you will know in the future. There is no need to hide it." Lyra Laozu looked at Lu Ping and said, "Your teacher has a daughter, you know, right?" This question really made it hard for Lu Ping to answer, but in the end, he still said, "Are you talking about junior sister Xian Xian or fifth senior sister?" Lyra Laozu was stunned, glanced at him and said, "The dead doesn't count." "Then it is junior sister Xian Xian. Disciple naturally knows." Lyra Laozu closed his eyes, and his tone suddenly became low. "How many times have you seen her in the North Sea?" Lu Ping thought for a moment, then said, "I really haven't seen her many times." Disciple has asked teacher during those years in the North Sea, but teacher said that junior sister has always been in seclusion in martial uncle Zhang's Xiaoyao palace. Lyra Laozu laughed coldly and said, "This seclusion began when I returned to Jinling, right?" Lu Ping didn't know what Lyra Laozu wanted to say, but thinking about it, it didn't seem to be much different, so he nodded. Lyra Laozu's expression finally revealed a trace of a strange expression. It seemed to be resentment, exhaustion, joy, and reluctance. He heard her say faintly, "Xian Xian is my daughter." Huh. This was really like a thunderclap, and Lu Ping was stunned. With a strange expression on his face, he stammered, "Martial uncle, this joke is a bit too big." Lyra Laozu smiled bitterly and said, "I know my daughter. She is my and Jiang Tianlin's child." Lu Ping didn't know how he walked out of Lyra Laozu's consultation hall. Along the way, he just kept thinking about Lyra Laozu's words. After telling this secret to Lu Ping, Lyra Laozu could no longer maintain her previous calm. Her expression was emotional, and her words became disjointed, but Lu Ping still heard a lot of grievances between the three of them. Back then, all the elders in the sect valued me, and said that my talent was second only to martial brother Jiang Tianlin. But no matter how hard I tried, Lu Tianling could always suppress me. Of course I wasn't convinced, and I wanted to fight with her. I wanted to fight with her for everything. Back then, all the cultivators in Jinling thought that Zhang Tianlin and I were a golden boy and jade girl, a match made in heaven, but Zhang Tianlin just had a soft spot for Lu Tianling. Why? I just couldn't accept it. Why couldn't I compete with her for everything? No one was optimistic about their marriage. Everyone was trying to persuade them, and even the elders in the sect began to secretly hint at them, but they still went together under the pressure. After becoming Tao companions, their cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds, and the voices of opposition in the sect became fewer and fewer. I just couldn't accept it. Why did I lose to Lu Tianling in everything since I was young? And now even the man I like has to lose to her. Break them up, by any means necessary. Back then, when I did this wrong, I originally thought that I could make Zhang Tianlin change, but I didn't expect him to not hide anything from Lu Tianling and tell her everything. Why is this happening? Why is this happening? But in the end, the two of them still fell out. But why didn't senior brother Tianlin return to my side? In the end, I couldn't hide it anymore. Everyone was blaming me, and even Martial Uncle Tianfan and Martial Uncle Tian Shui called me over and scolded me. I was pregnant with a child, and I didn't dare tell anyone, but I didn't get senior brother Tianlin's heart. So what was the point of having his child? I threw the child into the water, hoping that she would return to the sea with the flowing water. Her coming to this world was a mistake. I didn't have the face to stay in the sect, and even though many senior brothers and senior sisters tried to persuade me, I still decided to leave. But I didn't expect that my child was still alive, and the person who saved her was actually Lu Tianling. How could it be her again? She hid it from everyone, saying that this was her second child with Zhang Tianlin, and after I returned to Jinling, she purposely sent her to Xiaoyao Palace to cultivate in seclusion, so that I wouldn't be able to see this child. But in the end, I still saw her. Just before I was ready to summon the lightning tribulation, at the foot of the mountain, she, who had just broken through to the late stage of core forging, was celebrating with a few senior sisters. Even though she looked more like her father, the moment I saw her, I knew that she was my flesh and blood. I've never been convinced by Lu Tianling my entire life, but the moment I saw my daughter, I realized that I was at a disadvantage from the very beginning. I wanted to compete with her in everything, but she never put these things in her eyes. Was it because she didn't care? Was she just pretending? Or was it something else? Should I be grateful to her? Or should I hate her for being so shrewd and scheming? Although Lu Ping wanted to leave immediately after hearing Tian Qin Laozu's words, he knew that Tian Qin Laozu was standing at a crossroads. Either she became more paranoid about this matter, or she completely understood the grievances between the two sides. Lu Ping naturally hoped that the two sides could resolve this grievance, but he didn't dare to intervene at this time. He was Lu Tianling's disciple. If he tried to persuade her, not only would it be useless, it might even backfire. He could only remain silent and hope that Tian Qin Laozu could cross this hurdle in her heart, which was also the best way for Jinling's future. At this time, Lu Ping came to a realization. With Tian Qin Laozu's intelligence, how could she summon the first lightning tribulation when she wasn't fully prepared? And with Tian Qin Laozu's potential, she shouldn't have been so embarrassed by the first lightning tribulation. In fact, Tian Qin Laozu's preparation was very sufficient. With her strength, it wasn't too difficult for her to pass the first lightning tribulation. The only thing that could affect her, or even make her calm, was the daughter she gave birth to. Lu Ping was stunned. It seemed that he finally believed that Xin Xian was Tian Qin Laozu's flesh and blood. Lu Ping returned to his training room in a daze, but suddenly saw Yin Tianchu in a shadow outside the training room. Senior brother Lu, I was 70% sure that I could assassinate you just now. Although there were more early Dharma adepts and the competition for the battle credits list was more intense, with the help of 2 mid-Dharma adepts, it would be easier to obtain battle credits for early Dharma adepts. Furthermore, after Tian Qin Laozu had lost all hope of advancing, he had put all his energy into training the supreme spell formation. Inferno Heavens. When Scarlet Mist Island had first appeared in the North Sea, Lu Ping had obtained a mid-heaven level earth core fire from the island. This spirit fire could be divided into a low heaven level mother fire, 3 mid-earth level second-generation fires, and a high dark level third-generation fire. A total of 13 spirit fires were interconnected and were the best treasures for training the supreme spell formation, Inferno Heavens. After Tiancheng Laozu had obtained this spirit fire and successfully trained this spell formation, he could be said to be one of the top early Dharma adepts. Even the current Lu Tianyuan might not be a match for Tiancheng Laozu. Although the Sky Mountain Elder had the second tribulation spirit treasure, the mountain-splitting axe, and was not considered weak among the mid-Dharma adepts, one only needed to take a look at the people on the mid-Dharma battle credits leaderboard to know that this leaderboard was basically a competition between the top third-generation disciples of the various sections. It was not that Tiancheng Laozu could not bring himself to compete with the third-generation disciples, and there were indeed second-generation adepts on the battle credits list. For example, Yu Ziqing from the Amulet Pavilion, who was previously ranked third, was also a second-generation adept. It was simply because Tiancheng Laozu did not have much confidence in himself. In today's world of training, the second-generation adepts who were still at the mid-Dharma stage had mostly lost the qualification to advance to the late Dharma stage. Or perhaps they still had hope of advancing to the late Dharma stage, but they could only be considered as the most outstanding among the second-generation adepts. Compared to the top group of third-generation adepts, although these people had the same level of training, and the second-generation adepts had trained for a longer period of time, at the same time, it also meant that the third-generation adepts were generally more talented than the second-generation adepts and even the first-generation adepts who were still stuck at the mid-Dharma stage. Compared to them, the third-generation adepts were undoubtedly the cream of the crop of their respective sections. They were more valued by their sects and were more likely to receive the full support of their sections. Their inherited spells were more powerful, and the treasures they possessed were of higher quality. At the same time, they could also increase the persuasiveness of the sects in terms of strength. Furthermore, although the competition for the mid-Dharma stage was not as intense as the early Dharma stage, the difference in points on the list was even more despairing. After all, most of the people who could make it onto the list were the third-generation disciples of various famous sects in the world of training. In contrast, at this time, Great Ancestor Tianqing did not have this problem. At this time, the third-generation disciples who were stuck at the early Dharma stage could only be regarded as the second echelon among the third-generation disciples in terms of aptitude and strength. This echelon was actually the same as Great Ancestor Tianshan and the others, who could only become second-generation practitioners. Tiancheng Laozu himself should have originally been in the second tier of talent and strength. It was only because of the damage to his core that he had been forced to stay at the early Dharma stage. Compared to these second-generation disciples who were in the second tier, he did not have the slightest disadvantage at all. On the contrary, he had the extra hundreds of years of training time and the willing assistance of 2 mid-Dharma adepts. The possibility of Tiancheng Laozu being able to enter the early Dharma stage was far greater than that of Tianshan Laozu himself. After everyone left, only Lin Yu Laozu, Xiang Lu Laozu, and Tianshan Laozu were left in Jinling's base to hold the fort. Lin Yu Laozu was an outsider after all, and Xiang Lu Laozu was also an outer sect elder who did not participate in the sect's affairs. In this way, Tianshan Laozu had to stay in the base to deal with daily matters and deal with sudden incidents. At this time, the battlefield closest to Jinling's base was Xiang Palace, which was guarding the exit of the valley in the northwest. To the northwest of Joshuan Tower was a mountain range called the Zephyr Mountain Range. This mountain range could be seen as the dividing line between the northwest and central regions of Central Plains. In the middle of this mountain range, there was a gap in the valley that was several miles wide. This mountain pass was the only way to enter and exit the northwest from the central regions of Central Plains. Now, Xiang Palace's base was in the middle of this mountain pass, firmly blocking the only way to enter and exit the northwest from the central regions of Central Plains. On the cliffs on both sides of the mountain pass, Xiang Palace had also set up 2 camps, one on the left and one on the right, to protect the base. 30 miles away from Xiang Palace was an open area where Mara's army had gathered and dispersed. At this time, Mara's army had split into 3 groups to attack. Other than the most powerful central group attacking Xiang Palace's base, the left and right flanks were attacking the 2 camps on the cliffs on both sides of the mountain pass. Xie Tianyang was currently in the camp on the west side of the mountain pass. Looking at the Mara's army that was charging towards his camp like a tidal wave, Xie Tianyang used his finger to lightly tap the blazing sky sun sword in his hand. His eyes flashed with excitement as he muttered to himself, "Come on, if we can defeat this wave of attack, our battle points should be able to enter the top 5. At this time, on the mid-Dharma stage battle points rankings, Xie Tianyang's battle points had already reached 86 points, but he was still ranked 7th. However, he was only 2 points away from the Tianxian sect's first direct disciple, Chao Jianpain, who was ranked 6th. And in first place on the battle points rankings was still Lu Ping's unmoving 111 points. However, in second place, the second direct disciple of Xiang Palace, Little Shang's sword fan Mingzhe's battle points had already risen to 105 points. He was only 2 blood shura away from Lu Ping. Xie Tianyang laughed as he scolded, "This fellow is really patient. He still hasn't made a move. If he doesn't make a move soon, I'm afraid that second senior brother will surpass him in first place. Even the top 3 will not be guaranteed." Beside him, Su Jin laughed when he heard this. "A few days ago, you were hoping that Lu Daoyu wouldn't be in a hurry to make a move, but now you're worried about him, worried that someone else will surpass him. What exactly are you thinking?" Xie Tianyang replied in a huff, "I just want to make the ranking list more competitive, so that everyone can compete with their true abilities. If the ranking list is given to us by others, what's the point?" Su Jin nodded and said, "That's true." He opened the imaging stone in his hand and looked at it. Currently, Su Jin's points had reached 74 points, but his ranking had dropped from 11th to 12th. The 9 mystical towers Wei Zhan, who was still ahead of Su Jin yesterday, had now fallen to 13th place behind Su Jin. Of the 2 cultivators who were newly ahead of Su Jin, the 10th was Wuxing School's Huo Wuliang, while the 11th was Spirit Beast Sect's Empyrean Walker, Feng Qilong. The battle cries of Mara's army were getting closer and closer. Finally, with a loud boom, they collided with the protective formation of Xiang Palace's encampment. At the same time, the 2 camps on the cliffs on either side of the encampment were also attacked. Looking at the frenzied attacks of Mara's army outside the encampment's protective shield, the blazing celestial sun sword slashed across Xie Tianyang's body. Streaks of flowing flames almost burned through the surrounding void. "Let's get to work. Let's get to work. This time, we must suppress both Chao Jianpain and Yuan Feixiang." Xie Tianyang pointed with his flying sword and was about to rush out of the encampment. He had just discovered a blood demon hiding among Mara's army and was only 500 feet away from the encampment's protective shield. Unexpectedly, before he could rush out, Su Jin cursed. When Xie Tianyang turned around in surprise, he saw Su Jin staring fixedly at the psychic jade tablet in the center of the encampment. In an instant, the number 1, North Xizhenling Lu Tianping's points had suddenly increased by 15 points. Chapter 1297. Lu Tianping had made his move. This was the first reaction of the 2 of them. A jade demon had fallen into his demonic clutches. This was their second reaction. As for why he did not kill 3 blood demons or 5 blood shura at the same time, the 2 of them thought it was nonsense. Would a person who could kill Azuras purposely look for blood Mara to earn points? Xie Tianyang cursed under his breath, but his face was soon replaced by excitement. Lu Ping's move would definitely cause a chain reaction among the cultivators on the list. This way, the competition would become even more intense. Only by doing so could one's true strength be displayed on the list. The blazing celestial sun sword went straight for the blood demon hidden among Mara's army outside the camp's protective shield. This caused the surrounding Mara's army to panic. The blood demon summoned the surrounding big and small Mara to defend against it. At the same time, 2 blood shura appeared from the side to provide support. The blood demon himself had already started to hide the moment his identity was exposed. Xie Tianyang was not surprised, but happy. He hurriedly called out to Su Jin, and the two of them joined forces to launch a counterattack against Mara's army. Lu Ping and Yin Tianchu were hiding in the void at the periphery of Mara's army's encampment outside Ziyang Palace's encampment. They watched Mara's army split into 3 groups and pounced towards Ziyang Palace's encampment. Lu Ping smiled at Yin Tianchu and said, "There are many people hiding in the void around here." Yin Tianchu said disdainfully, "If you want to take advantage of others, you need to be strong." Lu Ping did not comment. He only looked at the left side of Mara's army and said, "Let's go. I heard that Brother Su and Brother Xie are guarding the camp on the cliff in the west. Let's go and help them." Just as Mara's army was charging towards the west side of the camp, Lu Ping and Yin Tianchu were also closing in on Mara's army. The army had already launched an attack on the camp, but at the rear, Lu Ping still found several Mara hiding nearby, secretly setting up a series of traps to prevent others from attacking their retreat. There was no lack of existences like Mara among them. Lu Ping smiled and said, "This Mara is getting more and more cunning. He actually laid a trap behind us." Yin Tianchu said, "As long as we are not surrounded, this trap is not a trap." Lu Ping nodded and smiled. "That's right." With that, the two of them turned invisible at the same time. Naturally, the battle between Purple Sun Palace and Mo Luo had attracted the attention of many cultivators from the other sections. Instead, his thin water sword turned into 2 spiraling green flood dragons that pounced towards the Jade Demon. The Jade Demon retreated, but it did not completely avoid Lu Ping's double flying sword attack. On the contrary, the Jade Demon wanted to take Lu Ping's attack head-on. That way, the Blood Mara would be able to take advantage of the opportunity to completely surround it. The soul-devouring black mist churned, and 2 huge black crows emerged from it. Then, they flapped their wings and rushed toward the 2 Cyan Wyrms, pecking at the eyeballs of the Cyan Wyrms with their black beaks. Unexpectedly, the 2 black crows were smashed into pieces by the 2 green dragons. 2 flying swords shot out from the dragons' mouths and went straight for the Jade Demon, who was hiding in the soul-consuming black mist. The Jade Demon clearly did not expect Lu Ping to ignore the Blood Mara and the 2 Jade Shuras that were coming from afar. Instead, he charged towards it. Although this surprised the Jade Demon and it had no choice but to retreat to avoid Lu Ping's attack, a terrifying scene suddenly unfolded before its eyes. The 2 Blood Shuras that came to help suddenly staggered. A cold light flashed twice, and their heads flew into the sky. The 2 Blood Shuras still maintained their flying posture. They then drew 2 diagonal parabolas in the air and fell to the ground. The moment the 2 Blood Shuras fell, the man in black who had been hiding behind Lu Ping suddenly appeared behind them. His cold eyes glanced at the other Blood Mara that were rushing over, and then he disappeared again. The mysterious appearance of the man in black and the sudden death of the 2 Blood Shuras caused the Blood Mara that came to help to stop in their tracks. They looked a little panicked for a moment. Lu Ping sighed in his heart. The shapeless sword skill could only be used to its fullest in the hands of Yin Tianchu. Although Lu Ping had also practiced this great sword skill and had made great achievements in his hands, Yin Tianchu was able to use the power of this sword skill to its fullest extent. Taking advantage of the time when Yin Tianchu suddenly killed the 2 Blood Shuras and shocked the other Mara, Lu Ping rushed towards the Jade Demon again. Kill. The soul-devouring black fog suddenly exploded, and countless black soul-devouring threads pierced towards Lu Ping from all directions. However, Lu Ping was not afraid. A small blue flag suddenly appeared in his hand, and with a wave of the flag, many auspicious clouds suddenly floated out of the small flag. With a clear chirp, a golden rock appeared and disappeared in the auspicious clouds. The black soul-devouring threads were all blocked by the auspicious clouds and could not advance any further. The soul-devouring threads could not stop Lu Ping's strong attack. The Jade Demon wanted to retreat again, but suddenly found that the auspicious clouds had suddenly turned into balls of flame. The black soul-devouring threads that were entangled were burned to ashes the moment they came into contact with this strange flame. The Jade Demon was shocked. The soul-devouring black fog was a natal technique of all demonic cultivators, but this time it was burned to ashes by Lu Ping's Jade Phosphor Soul Fire. This was no less than a heavy blow to the Jade Demon. The Jade Demon let out a mournful howl. Even though Lu Ping had the Cloud Sail to protect himself, the impact of the Jade Demon's divine thoughts gave him a headache. However, Lu Ping's divine thoughts only resisted for a moment before he was no longer affected by the Jade Demon's howl. Instead, Yin Tianchu's muffled groan came from not far away. Previously, he had attacked several times in order to stop the surrounding Mara's army. However, under the circumstances that he was on guard, he only managed to injure one Bloodshura in his first attack. After that, his subsequent attacks were all in vain. However, his elusive methods still made all the Mara very afraid, and they had to slow down the speed of rescuing the Jade Demon. The Jade Demon's roar forced Yin Tianchu to reveal himself in the void. Then, the demonic Luos who came to help were overjoyed. They surrounded Yin Tianchu and attacked him one after another. However, at this moment, the Jade Demon let out another howl not far away. This time, it was not the Jade Demon's soul-devouring magic skill. Instead, it was Lu Ping's thin water-flowing sword. He had already separated the Jade Demon from the soul-devouring black fog and trapped it in a sword formation. The companion numinous treasure hovering above Jade Demon's head was a Jade Rui scepter. Black mist drooped down from it in an attempt to protect Jade Demon. However, a gigantic white Jade Lotus suddenly bloomed beneath Jade Demon's feet. Invisible flames rose from the lotus and instantly burned the black light curtain that hung down from the Jade Rui scepter into nothingness. As Lu Ping's cultivation base grew and his divine sense expanded, the Jade Soul Fire's power also increased tremendously. The moment it burned through the Jade Demon's protective black mist, the Soul Fire materialized and the Jade Demon's body was instantly engulfed by the emerald green flames. A shrill scream came from the flames, but the thin water-flowing sword swung across the air and slapped away the Jade Rui scepter, which was still hovering above the Jade Demon's head. The Jade Demon's body was instantly engulfed by the emerald green flames. The Jade Demon let out a miserable howl, but the thin water-flowing sword swung across the air and slapped away the Jade Rui scepter. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.